Chapter 231. The next day at school, Jiang Xiu became the focus of the class. I admire you. Zhang Luan gave him a thumbs up, Zhang Yue flattered, and Zhou Jin wanted to make a statue or a god tablet for Jiang Xiu. Idle. The campus forum had completely exploded. Long Yingqing fell from the number 1 school belle in a straight line. Not only did she fall out of the top 4 from the first place, she couldn't even be ranked as the department belle in the department. The main thing was that after the photos of her covered in that stuff were posted on the forum, her image was completely destroyed. Brother, you're completely popular. The horny students worshipped him. He helped one campus belle suppress another campus belle, and became the most popular person on campus. I heard from Long Yingqing's classmates that Long Yingqing's family has asked for an indefinite leave from the school. They said that she might transfer schools. Zheng Luan was very well informed. Oh, is that so? Jiang Xiu was a little surprised. That girl was cold and he thought that she was a ruthless character. He didn't expect that she couldn't take this blow. However, Jiang Xiu didn't feel the slightest bit guilty. The winner takes all. Jiang Xiu, do you want to find campus belching for lunch? Yes. Jiang Xiu certainly wanted to find Cheng Lingran. However, he didn't have any loyalty and left the 3 horny students in the same dormitory. Because it was lunchtime, there were no pedestrians on the road in the woods around the science building. However, he saw Cheng Lingran riding a bicycle from afar. Minor repairs? Jiang Xiu asked. Where did the bicycle come from? It's my classmates. Today I'm in charge of buying snacks. Cheng Lingran had a smile on her face. It was more than 10 minutes from the girls' dormitory to the snack shop, so she had a bicycle. These girls knew how to play. Come on. Jiang Xiu sat at the back and naturally reached out to hug Cheng Lingran's waist. Jiang Xiu was very clear about her waist. It was very thin and there was not a trace of fat on her lower abdomen. Go. Cheng Lingran pedaled, and the bicycle went on the road. The autumn afternoon sun shone on their bodies, casting their shadows on the clean cement ground. The light and shadow intertwined with the autumn trees in the distance, like the most beautiful melody of youth. Cheng Lingran rode the bicycle and hummed softly. If I didn't meet you, where would you be now? How would you be? If I didn't meet you, would I cherish my life? Up to meet you and live an ordinary life. I don't know if you would also have a love as sweet as honey. No matter how much time passes, I only care about you. I'm willing to feel your aura. How many people can I find a confidant in my life? It was not a pity to lose the power of life. So I beg you, don't let me leave you. Other than you, I can't feel a single trace of affection. A beautiful and moving sweet honey song, just like the male and female protagonists in the movie. You seem to be in a good mood today, Cheng Lingran said cheerfully. Of course, my mother called me this morning and said that my father could sit up. The doctor said that it was a miracle and that my father had a chance to recover. Treating Cheng Hanlin's illness in exchange for a sweet honey song, Jiang Xiu smiled and thought to himself, it's worth it. We've arrived at the canteen. Jiang Xiu quickly jumped down from the car, and Cheng Lingran also lightly got down from the car. After parking the car, they entered the canteen. There was no need to worry about the car being stolen on campus. I might have to go out to archaeology. Cheng Lingran turned her head and looked at Jiang Xiu in surprise. Didn't your archaeology department say that there was a situation, and that you were forbidden from going out to archaeology for the first half of this year? How can you still go? Jiang Xiu said. It's self-organized, you can't possibly neglect your studies. Cheng Lingran nodded and said, In. Then how long will you be gone for? Jiang Xiu said. I have to go abroad, the exact time depends on the situation. Cheng Lingran put all the snacks on the shelf into Jiang Xiu's basket. She didn't eat much herself, but her classmates in the same dormitory loved it. She said, Go. Just remember to bring a gift. Then she kicked the box of beer at the side. He carry this box. A box. Cheng Lingran said. Of course. Are all girls so fierce now? Not long after sending Cheng Lingran back to the dormitory, Wang Xintong called. Her private plane didn't have an international route, so she couldn't use it. Thus, she booked a first-class seat for Jiang Xiu on the plane at 3 in the afternoon. Imperial Capital Airport. Wang Xintong booked a first-class seat, so the space was very comfortable. The stewardess was also very beautiful. Under her guidance, Jiang Xiu easily found his seat. "Sir, the seat by the window is yours." Next to her was a young girl. Her long hair covered half of her face, and she wore sunglasses. Her lips were painted red, and she looked very beautiful. Her eyes seemed to be looking out of the window. Judging from her clothes, she should be the daughter of some rich family. She sat sideways with her beautiful legs tightly closed. Even though it was a strenuous thing to sit on the plane, she still maintained her posture. It could be seen that this person's cultivation was not low. What was especially eye-catching was that her legs were long and slender. However, her long legs blocked Jiang Xiu's way. Jiang Xiu had to say, "Miss, please move." The beauty heard and said, "You're here. Can you change seats with me? I want to sit by the window." She suddenly took off her sunglasses, revealing a beautiful snow-white face. Her beautiful eyes immediately widened. "It's you." Jiang Xiu was also stunned for a moment. "It's you. Wasn't this just a coincidence?" This beauty was actually Long Yingqing. When enemies met, their eyes would turn red. If they had two knives in their hands, they would have immediately started fighting. "You want to change seats?" Jiang Xiu chuckled. "I'm not changing." "You." Long Yingqing felt that this guy was like a ghost that could be installed anywhere. She was actually able to sit on the same plane as this guy when she went out of the country, and she was even sitting right next to him. She immediately said, "Flight attendant, I want to change seats." The stewardess was in a difficult position. There were only a few seats in the first class, and they were all filled with people. "This, miss, then you sit down first. I'll help you ask." "Hurry up." Long Yingqing looked impatient, as if she would be poisoned if she stayed with Jiang Xiu for a second. Jiang Xiu was not so polite. She stepped directly from her legs. The little devil in Long Yingqing's heart jumped. She was about to kick Jiang Xiu. But when she thought of Jiang Xiu's powerlessness, she finally decided to give up. She retracted her slender feet, and threw him a disgusted look to let him experience it. "Miss, I've asked. No passengers are willing to change." Long Yingqing frowned and said, "Why are those people so ungentlemanly?" At this time, the annoying voice floated to his ear. "If you don't want to sit with me, you can sit with the people in economy class. I think they will be willing." The stewardess on the side also nodded. This is equivalent to giving people a free upgrade. Who doesn't want such a cheap thing? Long Yingqing also thinks it's a way, as long as he can get rid of the 8-clawed parasite from the Gamma planet. But on second thought, why should he be wronged like this? "You change." Jiang Xiu also gave her a disgusted look, and let her experience it herself. "You." Long Yingqing's white face was even whiter. Seeing this, the stewardess asked softly with a smile, "Isn't it an ex-boyfriend?" Long Yingqing opened her beautiful eyes wide, and looked at the stewardess who was blind beyond cure. "It's him. Look at what he's wearing. He's so shabby that he's never seen money in his 18 lives. His temperament is just like climbing out of the mud pit. If you put a gold chain around his neck, you'll be rich in Africa. How can this be my ex-boyfriend?" The stewardess smiled gently and quickly left. It was dangerous here. Jiang Xiu sniffed. "What's so smelly? Oh, by the way, what's the dragon? Have you washed it clean? Why are you still smelly? Don't tell me you haven't washed your hair clean? I remember there's so much that fell on your head and seeped into your hair." Long Yingqing's expression became very unnatural. Her snow-white face gradually turned green. She had even thought of shaving her head, but in the end, she couldn't bear to do so. Well, after hearing Jiang Xiu say that, she felt, "Oh, this bastard, the pot doesn't open. No, I can't lose." Long Yingqing forced herself to hold back. "What's this green thing?" When Long Yingqing heard the green word, she couldn't help vomiting. She covered her mouth and rushed to the bathroom. Chapter 232. This made the air stewardess nervous. She anxiously said, "Miss, the plane is about to take off. The bathroom is prohibited. Can you please return to your seat?" Long Yingqing actually couldn't spit out anything. She just felt nauseous and sat back with an ugly expression. Long Yingqing pressed her hand against her chest. She was furious in her heart. This bastard really deserved 1,000 cuts. The air stewardess asked, "Are you feeling unwell? How about I find you a trash bag?" Long Yingqing shook her head. She was really unlucky today. This flight would take more than 10 hours. Could it be that she had to sit with this guy for more than 10 hours? A ghostly voice sounded. It's better to give her one. If she vomits in the cabin, how can others stay? Oh right, don't take the green bag. Green. Long Yingqing couldn't listen to this word at all. Her pretty face immediately turned green. She quickly covered her mouth. This bastard was really too bad. Miss, where are you going? Long Yingqing said without hesitation. I'm getting off the plane. If she couldn't afford to offend him, couldn't she just hide? No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't stop him. She had already decided that no one could persuade her. If she sat with this guy, she would lose her life. But the cabin is closed and the escalator has already left. We're about to take off. How can we get off the plane at this time? The space couldn't stop her. I don't care. Long Yingqing felt that if she stayed here, she would be killed by this guy sooner or later. Anyway, I'm going to get off the plane. The air stewardess said. Miss, you really can't. Long Yingqing said angrily. I'm your VIP. When you check my plane, you won't let me get off. Do you believe that I won't complain about you? The air stewardess was in a difficult position. If she let the escalator come over, it would delay her for more than 20 minutes. That would cause a lot of trouble for the route and affect all the flights for the whole day. Miss, can you be considerate? Right now there's really no other way. The air stewardess also saw that the problem was with Jiang Xiu. She looked at Jiang Xiu pleadingly, hoping that he could say a few words to comfort this girl who was on the verge of collapse. Jiang Xiu said, All right, I won't mention it. Let's not interfere with each other's business. Long Yingqing. I'd be a fool to believe you. Jiang Xiu said, I swear on my conscience, okay? Long Yingqing said in her heart. To be able to be so ruthless to such a pure, beautiful, and generous young girl who could enchant all living things. What kind of credibility did this kind of person have? Your little bit of conscience has already been eaten up, Jiang Xiu said. There's still some left for you to eat. Long Yingqing's beautiful eyes widened. This bastard, is he calling me a dog? She angrily spat. You're the dog. Only then did she sit down again. After the plane took off, Jiang Xiu calmed down. He leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes motionless. 1 hour, 2 hours, it was the same. Long Yingqing couldn't help but be curious. Was this person a statue? She stole a few glances at Jiang Xiu and found that he really didn't move. After more than 10 hours, she was already very tired, but Jiang Xiu still didn't move. She was already pregnant, but Jiang Xiu was a dead man. Ladies and gentlemen, because our destination, Gaul Airport, is currently raining heavily, we can only temporarily stop by Luowu. We apologize for the inconvenience. When the announcement came out, the cabin exploded. However, the weather was unpredictable. If the captain forcefully flew through the thunderstorm area, it would be irresponsible to them. How could it be like this? Although they were unwilling, there was nothing they could do. It wasn't until the plane landed that Jiang Xiu opened his eyes and prepared to get off the plane with the others. In Luowu, they were only 200 kilometers away from Gaul. Some people would stay at the airport to wait for the relevant follow-up procedures. Some people who were familiar with Europe would rent their own cars or take the subway. It was Jiang Xiu's first time going abroad, so he was unfamiliar with the place. He planned to wait at the airport for the airline's arrangements, but it was said that there was no way for them to wait for a while. They had to wait for 4 hours. 4 hours was enough for them to take a car to Gaul, and after more than 10 hours of flight, they were already exhausted. Thus, Jiang Xiu changed his mind and went to a hotel near the airport to stay for the night. However, coincidentally, because Long Yingqing had not eaten much recently, her body was very weak. She also planned to find a hotel to stay in the hospital, but they bumped into each other at the hotel. Long Yingqing looked at Jiang Xiu and actually smiled. Needless to say, this ice-cold little girl's smile wasn't just beautiful. Her ice-cold face became incomparably lively, revealing a mouthful of pure white teeth. However, why was this girl smiling for no reason? Moreover, her smile was very strange. Jiang Xiu said. What are you laughing at? Have you never seen a handsome guy before? Long Yingqing said. You're handsome, my ass, you look like Zhu Beiji's second uncle. However, the smile in her eyes did not weaken in the slightest. Then she turned around and checked in. Give me a room. Jiang Xiu also planned to take out his ID and check in, but when he touched it, his expression changed. Where's my bag? Why would he need a human? He was a dignified deity. Could it be that someone could steal the bag from under his nose? But his bag was really gone. Miss, this is your room card. Please keep it well. Jiang Xiu frowned and saw Long Yingqing reach out to take the room card, waving her hand to show off to him. She pulled her luggage and walked inside. Jiang Xiu grabbed my hand. Where's my bag? Long Yingqing struggled twice. How would I know where your bag is? Jiang Xiu said. You're laughing so strangely, it must be related to you. Long Yingqing opened her eyes wide. You're surnamed Lai. Why are you always blaming me? Let go. If you don't let go, I'll call you molester. Do you think this is still China? People have guns? Let go. The foreign man on the side couldn't stand it anymore and walked over, speaking in English. Brat, hurry up and let go of this lady's hand, otherwise, I'll teach you a lesson. Jiang Xiu was angry and kicked him in the stomach. That brave foreign man screamed and curled up like a shrimp. Jiang Xiu said coldly, hurry up and tell me, where's my bag? Long Yingqing couldn't deal with this violent man. You left it on the plane and forgot to take it. Xiushen was stunned. This time he was embarrassed. It turned out that he had forgotten to take it. Who could take away his wallet under the eyes of Xiushen? He could only return to the airport. However, the airport staff couldn't find his luggage. According to the airline staff, it might have been taken by someone. His ID was inside. His bank cards were all inside, including the black card with 1 billion. Ding dong. Long Yingqing had just finished bathing and went to open the door when she heard the doorbell. The door had just opened a little when Jiang Xiu pushed the door open and walked in. Long Yingqing said, It's you. I was wondering why you barged into someone's room. Jiang Xiu said, I didn't find the bag. Long Yingqing was happy and thought to herself, you deserved it. However, the situation was a little strange. She said, so, what does it have to do with me? Jiang Xiu said, I'm going to stay here for the night. Someone will come to pick me up tomorrow. Long Yingqing crossed her arms in front of her chest. Why should I let you stay? Jiang Xiu looked at her and didn't say anything. Long Yingqing said, What are you trying to scare me? I'm just stubborn and I'm not afraid of your threats. Also, we're all Chinese and have to pay attention to our image overseas. But, this is a public place. Jiang, that's enough. Don't think that you can really fight. Last time, I was careless and underestimated you. Don't think that I can't beat you. Alright. You sleep on the sofa outside. In the end, Long Yingqing still succumbed to Jiang Xiu's martial arts intimidation and stomped her feet fiercely. She was really unlucky. She met him on the plane, and then in a hotel. He was a gangster and robber. Don't let me have the chance to teach you a lesson. Ding dong. The doorbell rang at this moment. Long Yingqing went to open the door and saw 2 foreign police officers standing outside. Why are the police here? The foreign police officers showed their police ID to them. We just received a report that someone said that you are engaged in illegal activities here. Now please come back with us to assist in the investigation. Long Yingqing blushed when she heard this. What was going on? She said angrily. Who is so wicked? We didn't do anything. Chapter 233. The police officer said, You know whether or not you've done anything illegal. Long Yinghong had never been humiliated like this in her life. She bit her lip and said, Mr. Police Officer, it's really a misunderstanding. We're friends. There's definitely nothing like what you said. Jiang Xiu was also very embarrassed. In addition, he had lost his passport. He was a little angry. You should use your brain a little when you do things. I'm dressed neatly. What can I do? The police officer pointed at Long Yinghong. Well, she was wearing a bathrobe and her hair was wet. He didn't know if she was wearing anything under the bathrobe. The police officer shrugged his shoulders. His meaning was obvious. Do you still need me to explain? Jiang Xiu said. I wouldn't be interested in her even if she sent me to bed. Even if I really want to sleep with her, I have to find someone with a hotter figure, right? This sentence immediately angered the school belle of Long Yinghong. She directly scolded in English. Damn bastard, look at your bare appearance. You look like an African refugee. Even if I'm blind, I won't like you. Jiang Xiu said. Do you still think you're the #1 school belle of Imperial Capital University? Save it. The school belle of Imperial Capital University has long fallen from the list. Being the class belle is smelly. Long Yinghong roared. I'll fight it out with you today. The foreign police officer said. Stop. He pointed at Jiang Xiu and asked Long Yinghong. You don't admit it, right? Then what's his name? This was the most common screening method used by police officers to crack down on prostitution. Long Yinghong only remembered that Jiang Xiu's surname was Jiang. When she cursed in her heart, it was all about the surname Jiang. She really didn't know the specifics. Jiang, Jiang Xiu said coldly. Jiang Xiu. Yes, Jiang Xiu. The police officer smiled and pointed at Long Yinghong. What's her name? Jiang Xiu couldn't remember Long Yinghong's ugly name. Long. Long Yingqing was furious in her heart. Are you a man or not? What do you usually pay attention to? She was such a famous school belle. Yet he couldn't even remember her name. She said angrily. Long Yingqing. The two foreign police officers said. Stop acting, my friend. We've seen your tricks many times. You're not allowed to have sex here. It's illegal. Long Yingqing said angrily. If you dare to talk nonsense again, I'll slap you. The police officer said. What? In the words of the Chinese, you're allowed to do immoral things, but you're not allowed to talk about it. If you really feel embarrassed and humiliated, then don't come out to sell yourself. Long Yingqing grabbed the collar of the bathrobe and kicked out with her long white legs. Bang bang. The two police officers were sent flying. Bang. The door was slammed shut by Long Yingqing. From Jiang Xiu's observation, one of the two police officers had broken ribs, and the other had a concussion. They were both guilty of assault. Jiang Xiu said, You're ruthless enough. I'm afraid it'll be even more troublesome. Long Yingqing glared fiercely at Jiang Xiu. Isn't it all because of you? After she entered, she closed the door. It didn't take long for her to change her clothes. Her hair was slightly wet, and she was wearing a fiery red windbreaker. Jiang Xiu realized that she seemed to like wearing red clothes. It made her skin look especially delicate and snow-white. He said, Let's go. Jiang Xiu asked in surprise, Where are we going? Long Yingqing said, Turn yourself in. She had hit someone in a fit of anger just now. However, this wasn't the country. She still planned to go to the police station to settle the matter. Jiang Xiu laughed out loud. You're turning yourself in to the Russians? Long Yingqing said. Do you think this is the country? Jiang Xiu said. We don't need it in the country, and we don't need it here either. If you anger me, I'll destroy Golia too. Long Yingqing cursed. Crazy. Who do you think you are? Even the President of the United States wouldn't dare to say such a thing. Don't cause any more trouble. Come with me. I can settle this matter. Today's matter was because of the two of them. Long Yingqing had no choice but to drag Jiang Xiu along. Otherwise, she wouldn't care about Jiang Xiu's life and death. At the local police station, Jiang Xiu leaned against the door and Long Yingqing walked in. When the police officer saw such a beautiful Eastern girl come in, he greeted her warmly. Madam, is there anything I can do for you? Long Yingqing said coldly. I'm here to report and turn myself in. Turn yourself in? Long Yingqing said. Your two colleagues wronged me. One of them had a rib broken by me, and the other had a concussion by me. As she spoke, she sat down on the chair. Her appearance was arrogant and cold. She didn't look like she was here to turn herself in at all. The police officer sized up Long Yingqing from head to toe. She might not even be 1.7 meters tall, but because of her long legs, she was very tall. However, she weighed less than 100 pounds and looked extremely weak. That person immediately laughed, and the police officers in the office also laughed. Madam, where are you from? Long Yingqing said. China. Madam from China. You just said that you broke one of our police officers' ribs and gave the other a concussion? Ha ha ha. The police station was in a mess of laughter. Bang. Long Yingqing suddenly jumped into the air and gave a fierce side kick. The police officer only felt his vision blur, and the cigarette in his mouth flew out. However, he was definitely fine. Fast, ruthless, accurate. The laughter stopped abruptly, and no one dared to look down on this girl who looked so weak that she couldn't even stand a gust of wind. My surname is Long. About an hour later, the sound of a helicopter rang out outside the police station. A middle-aged man came down from the helicopter. He was Chinese in his early 40s and had an arrogant face. There was also a fat white man with him. Sorry to trouble you, Mayor Hamill. Hamill smiled and said, It's a small matter. I'll go in and bail him out. Hamill entered the police station and said to Long Yingqing, Miss Long, I'm very happy to see you. Your uncle and I are very good friends. He wanted to use a European standard gift to express his welcome, but Long Yingqing had already returned to her persona. She coldly ignored his outstretched hand, making him extremely embarrassed. Your matter has been settled. Those bastard police officers went to the hotel to check the rooms. Their goal was to fine you a few €100, but they didn't expect to kick a steel plate. I'm very sorry about this. Long Yingqing's expression was ice-cold. She stood up and said, Now can my friend and I leave? Of course, your uncle is waiting for you outside. The middle-aged man had already arrived in front of Jiang Xiu. He sized up Jiang Xiu from head to toe. There was nothing special about him, and his clothes were not up to standard. He was just an ordinary person. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Long Yingqing come out of the police station. The middle-aged man's expression became ugly. Your parents said you came alone and brought a friend. Why didn't you say anything? Long Yingqing was about to speak when the middle-aged man gestured for her not to explain. Our Long family has a reputation. We have to consider the impact of everything we do. Fortunately, this is abroad. If it was in China, where would the Long family's face go? Long Yingqing stared at the middle-aged man with wide eyes. Her expression was one of shock. She wanted to speak, but when she moved her lips to explain, the middle-aged man had already said, You're still standing here. Isn't it embarrassing enough? Long Yingqing was furious. Her angry gaze swept towards Jiang Xiu. It was all because of this bastard. Ever since she met this bastard in the cafeteria, she had been unlucky. You go first. Long Yingqing helplessly walked towards the helicopter. The middle-aged man stared at Jiang Xiu. He wanted to say something, but after looking at Jiang Xiu for a long time he said, Let's leave this place and go back to Galuya first. If it rains later, the helicopter won't be able to leave. Jiang Xiu thought to himself that since he was going to Galuya, he would take a free helicopter ride. Long Yingqing saw that Jiang Xiu had come with her uncle and her eyes widened. She thought to herself that this guy's face was really thick. He still wanted to take their plane. Uncle, I'm not familiar with him. There's no need to bring him along. The middle-aged man said, Now you know how to embarrass yourself. Let's see how you explain this to your family later. He patted the seat of the pilot in front and said, Get ready to go. Long Yingqing was dumbstruck. I really have nothing to do with him. Boom boom boom. The helicopter rumbled. The middle-aged man had already put on his headphones, so he could no longer hear what Long Yingqing said. Looking at Jiang Xiu, Long Yingqing wanted to push him off the plane. Chapter 234. The helicopter took less than half an hour to arrive at a huge manor on the outskirts of Galuya, which was a distance of 100 to 200 kilometers. When the helicopter stopped, the rain became heavier and heavier. A car drove over from the huge and solemn castle. After the three of them got off the helicopter, they sat in the car and entered the manor. The wealth and style of the Long family somewhat exceeded Zhang Fan's expectations. In terms of wealth, the Long family was far from being comparable to the rich people on the Forbes list. Just this castle and the continuous wine manor were probably worth no less than $1 billion. There were many people sitting in the castle, holding red wine and admiring the rain outside. The middle-aged man walked in with Long Yingqing and Jiang Xiu. We've brought them back. The atmosphere was very strange. Although the people present had already noticed their arrival, no one turned around to look at them. They minded their own business, drank their wine, and watched the rain fall outside. Then Long Yingqing's uncle said to the servant, "Take these gentlemen to the guest room to rest." Jiang Xiu happened to be tired, so he followed them. His guest room was on the second floor, and from the window, he could see the scenery in the castle's lobby. With the power of a god, not only could he see clearly, he could also hear their conversation clearly. "Yingqing." A woman finally put down her wine glass and looked at Long Yingqing. "How old are you? You're still so willful. Do you know the consequences of your actions?" Long Yingqing remained silent. "Do you know what the consequences would be if this matter were to reach the ears of the Li family of the Chao country? You said you wanted to come back from the Chao country, and we listened to you. You said you wanted to study in the capital, and we also listened to you. Now you're bringing such a man home?" The atmosphere was very oppressive, as if everyone present was in a heavy mood. Long Yingqing's face was cold and she didn't say anything. "My good cousin, back then, when grandfather said that you would have the final say in the Long family in the future, you really thought that you were the head of the family. Don't be naive, that was because the crown prince of the Li family took a fancy to you. Grandfather coaxed you to set up an engagement with him. Now you've given such a big gift to that person from the Li family. Do you think any man can stand this kind of thing?" Long Yingqing said, "Don't slander me." "I'm slandering you?" The woman laughed. "You've already been arrested and brought to the police station. I can accuse you, but the police officer has no enmity with you. How can he accuse you?" Long Yingqing said, "I knew it. Why would a police officer come up all of a sudden?" "So it was you guys who set me up." The woman said, "Empty words. Do you have any proof? You don't, right?" "You don't, but we do." "Then this living man is the best evidence." Long Yingqing's expression changed. No wonder her uncle wanted to bring Jiang Xiu back. She had even said that she had nothing to do with Jiang Xiu. It turned out that he was waiting for her here. That bastard Jiang Xiu really did a lot of harm. You spilled soup on me in the cafeteria, and then you even accused me of selling shit. After that, I made you feel disgusted on the plane, and when I stayed in a hotel, people said that I was selling that. Now, I'm being used as evidence. What kind of sin did I, Long Yingqing, in my previous life to provoke a monster like you? Long Xiuyin, what do you want? Long Ying's delicate eyebrows rose in anger. What do I want to do? Give up the benefits of your branch. All these years, your family has taken all the advantages, and it's time to spit them out. There are so many people, and your family has more benefits than everyone combined. Do you think it's fair? Long Xiuyin said. Long Yingqing said, what if I say no? Long Xiuyin said, then the matter of you and this wild man will spread to the Li family of the Chaogua. At that time, the Li family will want to break off the engagement with you. Do you think that with grandfather's current condition, he can withstand this stimulation? I guess he definitely won't be able to take it. If he can't catch his breath. You know that this kind of thing is hard to say. Long Yingqing was so angry that her little face turned pale. You, Long Xiuyin came to Long Yingqing's side and put her hand on her shoulder. Why do you care? You're a girl after all. Your husband's family is still the Li family of the Chaogua. Sooner or later, you'll marry over. Long Yingqing was so angry that her entire body trembled. When Jiang Xiu heard this, he more or less understood Long Yingqing's situation. The royal family had no familial love, and the rich families were as deep as the ocean. The Jiang family was like this, and the Long family was also like this. So many people plotted against a little girl just for the sake of benefits. At this moment, when Jiang Xiu looked at Long Yingqing, it was as if he saw himself entering the Jiang family in his previous life. Whether or not Long Yingqing would hand over the benefits, Jiang Xiu was no longer interested in knowing. These things had nothing to do with him. Today was a coincidence. He was with Long Yingqing, and if it were anyone else it would be the same, so he didn't feel any guilt. He moved his feet and came to a chair. The servant opened a red wine for him, and also prepared some pastries for him to slowly eat. Sir, our master has feelings. And, about half an hour later, the middle-aged man from before, Long Yingqing's uncle, invited Jiang Xiu to a living room. The wind and rain outside were heavy and cold, so he lit some firewood in the living room so that the air wouldn't be so damp and uncomfortable. Sit. Jiang Xiu sat down indifferently. He didn't raise his head to look at Jiang Xiu. In his eyes, Jiang Xiu was just an insignificant character. He opened his mouth and said, "Traveling by helicopter and living in a European royal castle like this, I'm sure you've already seen that our Long family isn't an ordinary family." Indeed, the Long family was definitely not an ordinary family. It's good that you're not nervous and afraid. It shows that your psychological quality is not bad. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to stay calm if they saw their girlfriend driving a sports car and living in a villa, let alone driving a helicopter and living in a royal castle. Jiang Xiu smiled faintly. "Why did you call me here?" The middle-aged man said, "You should know. Why make me say it and embarrass everyone? It's better for everyone to be friendly. We don't mind you being friends with Yingqing. In the future, if you encounter any problems, you can come to us, but other things can't be done. You're a smart person. You should understand." Jiang Xiu said, "She and I are just ordinary friends. No, not even ordinary friends. To be more precise, they should be enemies." The middle-aged man laughed. "It's really pleasant to talk to smart people." As he spoke, he took out a check and pressed it on the table and pushed it towards Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu was really curious about what price this man would give him. But just as Jiang Xiu reached out to take it, an extremely angry voice sounded. "Jiang Xiu, come out." There was no need to guess. It was our school beauty Long Yingqing. She originally went to find Jiang Xiu, but found that he wasn't there. She asked the servants and learned that he was invited by his uncle, so she rushed over and saw this scene. At this moment, Long Yingqing rushed over like a furious dinosaur. She looked at Jiang Xiu with disdain, disgust, hatred, and finally disdain. She grabbed Jiang Xiu's arm and said, "Come here." Jiang Xiu was pulled out by her. Long Yingqing had never seen such a shameless person in her life. Just now he really reached out to ask for the check. She coldly asked, "What are you doing?" Jiang Xiu said, "Your uncle told me to chat with him, so I chatted with him." "Do you think I'm blind? What's on the table?" "Check." Long Yingqing said. "Jiang Xiu, oh Jiang Xiu, although I think you're despicable, I admire your courage to protect Qingling Ran. But I didn't expect you to be such a person. What right do you have to take that check? What right do you have to take it? You're shameless." Jiang Xiu was very innocent. "Your uncle gave it to me. If someone gives you money, there's no reason to not take it, right? If you don't want it, then you're really shameless." Long Yingqing said, Talking about reason and principles with people like Jiang Xiu was simply playing the lute to a cow. "Jiang Xiu, I'm warning you, I have nothing to do with you. Don't think about taking advantage of my family. You don't have the right to take that check. I won't chase you away when it's raining outside, but tomorrow when the sky clears up, you'll immediately scram for me. Never, never appear in my sight again. Otherwise, I don't even know what I'll do." This bastard was her nemesis. She had to completely stay away from him. Jiang Xiu said, Okay. We're just strangers who met by chance. I'll leave early tomorrow morning, okay? But I'm penniless. You should be able to lend me a few €100. Pfft, Long Yingqing almost vomited blood. Chapter 235. Jiang Xiu had lost his passport and was penniless. Although Long Yingqing didn't think it had anything to do with him, this guy was a big disaster. If she didn't send him away, she would be the unlucky one. She could only grit her teeth and say, "Come with me." Jiang Xiu smiled and followed her, saying casually, "Many of your family members live here." Long Yingqing said, "It's none of your business." Well, this girl had already reached the point where she didn't know how to argue. Jiang Xiu didn't say anything else and followed her into a room deep in the castle. The room was filled with a European medieval feeling. She rummaged through it and found a €500 note and handed it to Jiang Xiu. "Then this is for you. In the future, you will completely disappear from my sight." "That's enough. You want to send us away with spiritual cultivation with just €500? However, Jiang Xiu really had no interest in getting involved with this girl. Jiang Xiu took the money and turned to leave. Although 500 euros wasn't much, it was enough for him to leave this place and enter the big city of Gaol. But after taking a few steps, Jiang Xiu stopped and asked, "Finally, can I ask you a question?" Long Yingqing impatiently crossed her arms and said, "Ask?" Jiang Xiu said, "Did you have a big change when you were young? Moreover, only by living in this castle will your illness be under control." Long Yingqing was stunned. She was quite shocked. When she was 4 years old, there was a big change. She had a high fever, and the doctors were helpless. Almost everyone in her family thought she was dead for sure. However, her grandfather, who loved her, brought her to Europe. Just like today, she happened to pass by here and stayed for a night. She didn't cry or make a fuss, and her condition improved greatly. Therefore, the Long family bought this place, and Long Yingqing recovered not long after. Only her close relatives knew about this matter. "How did you know?" Jiang Xiu smiled faintly and said, "Looking at your soul, the compatibility between your body and your soul isn't very high. If I'm not wrong, you experienced a soul swap when you were young. The so-called soul swap only happens when a child's skull hasn't healed, and is seriously ill and on the verge of death. Only then will a wandering soul have the opportunity to occupy your body. Have you heard that a child's temperament changes greatly after recovering from a serious illness, because of a soul swap?" Long Yingqing sneered. "If you say that my soul has been swapped, then why don't I know it myself?" "Nonsense," Jiang Xiu said. "After a wandering soul takes over your body, you won't have any memories. Of course you won't know. You've always thought that you were you. However, I'm guessing that you don't remember anything before you got sick." Long Yingqing said, "I was so young at that time. Of course it's impossible for me to remember. Don't try to mislead the crowd with your lies." Jiang Xiu said, "All right, it's still annoying." If Long Yingqing's soul had been swapped, then the little girl's soul back then would have already died, and the current Long Yingqing would be the real Long Yingqing. However, people who had their souls swapped, because the compatibility between their bodies and souls was not perfect, would often have problems with their bodies. They would feel inexplicably uncomfortable, dizzy, and angina. "Let's go." After Jiang Xiu left, Long Yingqing was a little absent-minded. She looked at herself in the mirror, and the reflection in the mirror suddenly became so unfamiliar, as if she had never seen her before. "This bastard must be trying to scare me on purpose," Long Yingqing thought fiercely, but in his heart, he couldn't help but suspect that he was a soul swapper. When he was 4 years old, he fell ill and his original soul was gone. He was occupied by a ghost, which was himself, and then began his life as Long Yingqing. "Pei, what are you thinking, Long Yingqing?" He was ruthless in his heart. Jiang Xiu, that bastard, he had already left, yet he was still pretending to be mysterious. However, Long Yingqing seemed to remember that she had once read an ancient Greek book that mentioned the possibility of this phenomenon existing. Moreover, ever since she was young, her grandfather had never let her go to a temple, especially the ancient Path Academy in Europe. It can't be. Jiang Xiu had indeed been scaring Long Yingqing just now, but it was true that Long Yingqing's soul compatibility was not perfect. Looking at her snow-white face and red lips, it was obvious that she was extremely bewitching. This was just the appearance, but it was not that her soul had been swapped, but that she had been sacrificed. When Long Yingqing came here back then, someone must have used the soul entering technique to treat her illness and take her life. The method was not bad, and it was definitely not bad to be able to make the spiritual cultivation think that it was not bad. Unfortunately, that person did not strip the dead remnant soul from the body. There were two possibilities. One was that it was impossible, but since even such a brilliant method like planting a soul to substitute for death could be done, it would definitely not be a problem to strip the remnant soul from the body. Then, there was only one possibility left, which was to stay in Long Yingqing's body forever as a sacrifice medium, collecting Long Yingqing's life or her energy to nourish himself. There was never a free lunch in this world. The various discomforts that appeared on Long Yingqing's body were the aftereffects of the sacrifice. The rain was getting heavier and heavier. The quiet royal castle stretched across the undulating plains. It was full of European flavor, full of evil and mysterious aura. As night fell, Everything around it became even more oppressive. In the middle of the night, Jiang Xiu seemed to hear a strange cry in his sleep. It sounded like a beast, but also like a human. In short, he did not sleep well for the whole night. The next day was a cloudy day. Although it was not as worrisome as rain, it did not make people happy. As far as the eye could see, the entire sky was very low. He casually turned on the TV. It was broadcasting foreign news. A huge house fire had occurred in a city in Gao. The blonde female host was saying something, but Jiang Xiu could not understand. He looked at the extent of the destruction of the tall building on the TV. It did not look like it was caused by the house fire, but more like it was cut by some kind of strong and sharp cutting object. However, the height of the building was more than 30 stories, and a large part of it was cut off. The cut was so complete, more than 30 stories in the air, and the structure of a house that was more than 10 square meters was cut out of thin air. There was a knock on the door. The person who pushed the door open was a servant. He looked like a Chinese and spoke fluent Mandarin. "Sir, Miss asked me to ask you, when do you plan to leave?" He's here to chase me away." Jiang Xiu pointed at the female host on the TV and asked, "What's the news saying?" The servant said, "Oh, this is today's big news. It's very profound, saying something about space folding. That part of the house disappeared from our space-time and appeared in a different space-time. It's said to be some kind of phenomenon. It's all empty talk. There's no way to prove it at all. It should be man-made, just used to hype things up." When Jiang Xiu saw the neat cut, his first thought was that it was caused by sword and knife techniques. However, there should not be anyone here who knew how to do it. "Sir, when do you plan to leave?" Jiang Xiu said. "I'm leaving now." The servant thought that Jiang Xiu would still stay here. Little did he know that he had come to Europe in a hurry. When he went downstairs, he did not even prepare breakfast for him. His meaning was very clear. Hurry up and leave. He took a car and went to a nearby road. There were many cars coming and going, as well as some foreigners riding tall horses. He did not wait for too long and stopped a passing car. Jiang Xiu promised to give him 100 euros before he agreed to give Jiang Xiu a ride. After more than 2 hours of driving, he entered Gaoyue and called Wang Xintong to tell her about his situation. Wang Xintong said, "If I were by your side, this would definitely not have happened." Jiang Xiu said, "Get to the point." Wang Xintong said, "I'll immediately get someone to go to the Gaoyue embassy to get your passport done for you. Then, the children of the Wang family will come and pick you up. You can arrange the details yourself when the time comes." Soon, the Wang family's car appeared in front of Jiang Xiu. They even brought his new passport and signature. It was a man in his 40s. "Mr. Jiang, these are the photos we collected. This is the person who took the thing you wanted." Jiang Xiu picked it up and glanced at it. It was a European man. It was too difficult to find such a person in Gaoyue. Moreover, he might not stay in Gaoyue. "Go to the modern building, where the fire happened today." The man said in surprise, "Why are we going there?" Jiang Xiu was not so polite to him. He glanced at him coldly, and he immediately understood that he had said too much. He immediately lowered his head and opened the car door for Jiang Xiu. After helping him to his seat, he ran to open the car door. Chapter 236. There were a lot of onlookers gathered near the skyscraper. There were dozens or hundreds of people. It would have caused a sensation in China, but it was the same here. It was clearer at the scene than on TV. A landmark skyscraper seemed to have been cut off by a giant with a sharp blade. Inside the building, the relevant personnel were doing an inspection. As for the fire, it should be caused by the damage to the circuit inside the building. Wang Dingshan asked, "Mr. Jiang, is this really caused by space folding?" Jiang Xiu didn't speak, but stood where he was. His forehead was shining with a white light, and the knife pellet in his spirit essence flashed out. After becoming a god, his spirit essence was unobstructed, and the knife pellet had truly become a part of his body. He didn't need to tremble as he used it before. The knife pellet slowly rose into the air, reaching a height of dozens of meters. Finally, it floated in the damaged part of the building. Boom! The knife pellet suddenly shook, and a powerful knife intent surged out. No one could imagine how terrifying this knife intent was. It instantly swept out like a gust of wind. The knife intent spread out, and there seemed to be huge ripples in the sky. At this time, Jiang Xiu shook his head slightly and said, "I'm not sure." Judging from the scene, it was indeed not a sword technique or a saber technique. There was no residual sword intent or knife intent. Otherwise, the knife pellet and knife intent would inevitably resonate. This was Jiang Xiu's method of exploring knife intent. However, he used to use sword intent, but now he used knife intent. It was one of the secret methods of Tianqing school to chase enemies. As for whether it was due to space folding, he wasn't sure. However, although he didn't see anything from the skyscraper, Jiang Xiu felt many martial arts practitioners and unnatural presences among the people present. These people should have also been attracted by the strange scene of the skyscraper. A young European man seemed to be taking pictures of the skyscraper with a camera. In fact, Jiang Xiu felt that he had taken several pictures of himself in a row. Perhaps he noticed that Jiang Xiu was looking at him, so he deliberately took pictures of the skyscraper again. He even chatted with the people beside him for a while before he turned around and left. He looked very professional and cautious. He quickened his pace and passed by a woman. The camera in his hand fell into her hand. He said softly, "This person might really be the new super demigod who ranked third on the demigod ranking, Jiang Luoxia. Inform the relevant people immediately, and pay close attention." The European woman's expression did not change. "Got it." In an instant, the European woman turned into another street, and came to the side of the plaza. She sat on a bench and saw a man reading a newspaper. The woman said, "Jiang Luoxia coming to Galuya is such a big matter. Why didn't you inform us? What's the purpose of his trip? Does he have anything to do with the skyscraper?" The person reading the newspaper was a man with black eyes and black hair. "There's no need to be so nervous. It has been confirmed in the country that Jiang Luoxia has indeed left the country and come to our country. However, he might just be traveling." The woman sneered. "Are you crazy? The #1 demigod was traveling. Are you trying to fool a 3-year-old? The man said, "No matter what he's here for, we didn't receive any mission, did we? Moreover, with his strength, what we can do is very limited. Let's wait for orders from the higher-ups." The woman said, "Aren't you Chinese people very homesick and homebody?" The man said, "Mr. Jiang is an exception. He's not even 20 years old. It's normal for him to come out and see the world." The woman cursed fiercely. 20 years old. What AF * King H. The man laughed. A 20-year-old demigod was really shocking. A smug look appeared on his indifferent face, as if he was proud of him. Elysium has an old grudge with him. An unknown person died in his hands. Elysium might want to do something. Mr. Jiang's trip to Europe will not be easy for us. Everyone be on your guard. A fat European man with a big belly was munching on a hot dog. He stepped on the fountain beside the bench and said, "I've received news that Mr. Jiang came with the young lady of the Long family." The person reading the newspaper couldn't help but look surprised. The Long family is a branch of Elysium. Why would they be involved with Mr. Jiang? Is it Miss Long who is engaged to the Li family of Chaogua? The fat European man finished the hot dog in a few bites. He clapped his hands and said, "That's right." After that, he seemed to have come to enjoy the scenery. He took one last look at the scenery here, and turned to leave. The person reading the newspaper frowned. What the hell is going on? The Long family and the Li family of Chaogua are all branches of Elysium. Why would they be involved with Mr. Jiang? The European woman's expression became extremely solemn. This advanced Mr. Jiang wouldn't want to enter the heavenly gates, would he? The person reading the newspaper couldn't stay calm anymore. He was stunned. The European woman continued, "If Elysium offers him an important position, such as the third or even the second throne, even a super demigod would be tempted." The man reading the newspaper was already livid. If that's the case, Huan Nation is in big trouble. He couldn't sit still anymore. He stood up and said, "No, I have to report this to my superiors immediately." At the same time, in an old castle in Europe, the handsome blonde man, King Alex, walked into the meeting room with a monk in a green sweater. The monk's voice was very soft, but it was very harsh. "Our guest is here, King Alex." King Alex said, "Isn't this what we wanted?" The monk stopped in his tracks. He was still holding a walking stick in his hand. He said, "But don't forget, when we made this plan, it was to avenge the unknown king. However, this happened before he killed Ji Wudao. Now he is ranked third on the divine roll, the number 1 demigod in Hua Nation. Can we kill him?" He pointed at a crow resting on a withered tree in the distance and said, "Look, even the Grim Reaper is here." The handsome King Alex smiled evilly and said, "Is there anyone in this world that Elysium can't kill even if we want to? Even if we can't kill him, he can't kill me." His hand grabbed a plaque hanging in front of his chest. There were 2 dragons coiled on it. The underground forces said that King Alex had a divine artifact called the Yin-Yang Twin Dragons. It was said to be the strongest defense in the world. It was said that it could be produced without any pressure under an atomic bomb. The monk laughed. His voice was like a broken gong. "Do you want to improve your ranking on the demigod roll?" King Alex said, "No one cares about that stupid ranking. If Zhu doesn't care, who cares?" The 2 of them continued to walk inside. By the time they entered, there were already many people inside. They were all demigods of Elysium scattered around the world. They had all been gathered because of the arrival of the number 1 demigod in Hua Nation. This time, the number of people who came was even more than the last time when the unknown person was killed. A man in a black robe had his back facing everyone. He was holding the longevity stone talisman that appeared at the auction house in his hand. "Is everyone here? Then let's start today's theme. There is only one theme. Descend the 9 mysteries and cleanse the heavens. Do 1,000 years of work." Jiang Luoxia, a tall man in a military uniform, said, "We're ready to join forces at any time. No matter how strong Jiang Luoxia is, it's impossible for him to win against 3 or 4 demigods. Moreover, we've gathered so many people this time." "Sir, aren't you making a mountain out of a molehill?" The man in the black robe said, "Of course, killing him is not a problem. However, I have a new idea. Isn't Elysium in need of such talents? Just like how we accepted everyone else, let us accept Jiang Luoxia." As soon as he said that, the place fell silent. "Sir, don't forget that he was the one who killed the unknown person." The man in the black robe said, "It's precisely because we lost the unknown that we need someone to replenish our strength." Another person said, "This kind of person, we don't know his background and temperament. It's too risky to use him. What if he can't be controlled? It might even affect our internal affairs." Yes, that's right. Many people began to discuss. Some agreed, some disagreed, but there were many who disagreed. Moreover, the monk asked, "Will Jiang Luoxiao agree?" Demigods were all proud and aloof, not to mention the title of the number 1 demigod in Hua Nation. The man in the black robe said, "The rules of Elysium state that everyone who enters Elysium has to undergo a test. We also have to take his most important person as a hostage. He will be obedient. He will either be used by me or die." Chapter 237. At an antique auction house in Galuya, Wang Dingshan said, "Mr. Jiang, this is the St. Adolphe Antiques auction house. The item you want was auctioned off from here." Jiang Xiu glanced at the auction house. It looked a little like a church and had a strong sense of history. It should be an old building. Let's go in and take a look. Behind the glass cabinets along the way were some European antiques. There were even some that looked like Chinese bronze. Seeing that there were guests, the staff of the auction house went up to greet them. When he saw Wang Dingshan, he smiled and said, "Mr. Wang, you're here again." Wang Dingshan said, "This is my boss, Mr. Jiang." The staff said respectfully, "Mr. Jiang, hello. It's an honor to have you at our auction house. Unfortunately, the item you want has already been sold. Also, the buyer left behind false information. We can't do anything about it." Jiang Xiu looked around the antiques. "I'm not here to look for the buyer's information. If he wants to hide it, it won't be easy to find it. I'm here to look for the seller's information. The longevity rune stone could promote the deification of mortals. He was also curious about who would sell the longevity rune stone. Was he affected by the longevity rune stone? Jiang Xiu's words were beyond the staff's expectations. What's wrong? Is it inconvenient? Jiang Xiu's cold gaze fell on the face of the skinny European who looked to be about 50 years old. The latter smiled apologetically and said, "It's convenient, of course it's convenient." He went to find the registration information. "Dear sir, I hope I can help you." However, the result disappointed Jiang Xiu. He couldn't contact the person. The phone number had become a dead number. The person's bank account had also been deleted. Walking out of the auction house, Jiang Xiu was silent. This matter made him feel strange. Anonymous selling and anonymous buying. It made him feel like his left hand had been turned over to his right hand. He felt that this might be a trap used to deal with people. As far as the longevity rune stone was concerned, no one would sell it. His phone rang. It was Wang Xintong. "Where are you? How are things? Any progress?" Jiang Xiu said. "Not at the moment." Wang Xintong said. "Then what are your plans? Are you going back or staying here for the time being?" Jiang Xiu said. "Of course I'll leave it here. There must be a reason why this thing appeared once, and it will definitely appear a second time. I must obtain this thing." Wang Xintong said. "Oh, that's right. I'm calling to tell you that a while ago, all of Zhongtian's businesses were suspended, and I've taken over the position of the CEO of a famous luxury diamond brand in Galuya. There will be a banquet tonight, and there will be luxury jewelry for sale. You should go to Europe and buy some gifts for the old lady and the one in your heart." Jiang Xiu didn't like Wang Xintong mentioning Chengling Ran. However, she reminded him right this time. He couldn't just focus on doing things and delay buying gifts for them. The things that will be auctioned at the banquet are all good things that can't be bought outside. Wang Xintong said. "If you're interested in going, let Wang Dingshan go and get the invitation. This banquet is an anniversary celebration. It's unprecedentedly grand, and the standards are very high." When he returned to the hotel, the entrance was blocked by a group of Chinese people. Jiang Xiu took a closer look and saw an outrageously beautiful girl pulling a suitcase. He couldn't help but smile. This wasn't a coincidence. He actually met a big star here. Looking at her nimble appearance, her leg injury should have fully recovered. Meeting a noble person when going out, and meeting an old friend in a foreign land was a joyous occasion. He was about to go up and greet her when he realized that many people didn't go up to help. He saw cameras, radio receivers, and even people at the side. They were actually filming. Xiao Xiao, Xiao Xiao. Jiang Xiu seemed to remember that in his previous life, Xiao Xuetong participated in a very famous travel reality show. It should be the one she was filming now. Since they were filming, Jiang Xiu didn't go up to say hello. He walked past from the side. Unexpectedly, Xiao Xuetong saw him. Her eyes flashed with a trace of abnormality. She was somewhat unsure. After looking at him a few times, she was 80 to 90% sure. She wanted to stop Jiang Xiu, but she couldn't delay the filming, so she had to give up. When the filming was over, Xiao Xuetong returned to the hotel and said to her agent, "Lai Jie. Lai Jie, I think I met Jiang Xiu." Jiang Xiu? Lai Jie tore open a mask bag and prepared to help Xiao Xueqing apply a mask. The beauty of a female star needed a lot of time and money to take care of. Who? Xiao Xuetong widened her eyes and came to her side. "How could you forget? In Jiangcheng, when we met with trouble and I was kidnapped, it was that young man." Lai Jie said. "You have so many fans. Who would remember? You'd better worry about the invitation to the RV fashion show." Xiao Xueqing said. "The RV fashion show is very important. Over the years, the RV fashion show will be attended. They are all the top stars in the world. But I'm not qualified. What can I do if I don't receive an invitation? Jiang Xiu is different. He's in this restaurant. He's my benefactor." She would never forget the scene when she was caught in a 7-seater car and Jiang Xiu chased after her car. She felt that even the most beautiful movie couldn't be as memorable as that scene. Lai Jie said. "What do you want?" Xiao Xueqing grabbed Lai Jie's hand and said coquettishly, "I want to go out and look for him." Lai Jie immediately changed her expression and said, "You're crazy. You have so many fans. If someone sees you going to the hotel to look for a strange man? What if you're photographed by reporters? What if they write nonsense about you? Listen to me. Nothing is more important than an artist's image in front of the public. Xiao Xueqing pouted her pink and tender lips and said with grievance, "But he's my benefactor. You don't want others to say that I'm heartless and ungrateful." Lai Jie thought for a moment and said, "Now that you mention it, I remember. Isn't that the famous Mr. Jiang in Jiang City? When a big star like Xiao Xueqing went to a place, the local big shots would flock to her. She was used to being flattered by people. She had seen too many people like this. She remembered Jiang Xiu because the experience that day was too special. Moreover, it was also because of the appearance of Gu Shu, who was the Feng Jiang of Jiangnan. However, there was obviously a difference between their perceptions. Xiao Xueqing knew Jiang Xiu, but Lai Jie said Mr. Jiang. Yes, that's him. Lai Jie muttered to herself. She felt that it was better to have a good relationship with such a person. She said, "Then be careful. Remember not to be photographed." Yay! Xiao Xueqing jumped up excitedly and immediately called her little assistant. The two of them went to the front desk. Xiao Xueqing said in fluent English, "Excuse me, is there a Mr. Jiang Xiu staying here from China?" After the hotel checked, they shook their head and said, "Sorry, there's no such person." The hotel room was booked by the Wang family on behalf of Jiang Xiu. Ah! Xiao Xueqing was a little disappointed. In such a situation, it was usually a friend who booked the room. This was troublesome. The hotel was so big. Did they have to check room by room? This was obviously not going to happen. She went back to her room dejectedly. Lai Jie asked, "What's wrong?" The little assistant shook her head and said, "I didn't find him." Lai Jie said, "This kind of thing can't be done deliberately. It's fine if you can't find him. You should prepare well, and see if you can go to RV's anniversary celebration tonight. I've already called the boss, but he rejected me. Xiao, you'd better call him yourself. To put it nicely, it's no joke to become RV's spokesperson. You'll immediately have an international reputation." Xiao Xueqing said, "The company only has one invitation. If it's not for me, it's for Bai Xian. Since the boss didn't give it to me, he must have given it to her. Why fight with her? When the time comes, people will say that we don't get along." Lai Jie was really angry. Bai Xian is so strong. If you keep giving in to her, the company's resources will be snatched away by her. Even if you don't fight with her, she will fight with you. The entertainment industry is so realistic. Xiao Xueqing fell silent after hearing this. "Listen to me. Hurry up and go." That night, Jiang Xiu dressed up and attended the banquet. Whether or not he bought things for Cheng Lingran, he couldn't miss out on his mother's things. He wanted Lin Yueling to become the richest woman in the world. However, Jiang Xiu didn't expect the banquet to be so grand. When he arrived by car, he had to walk the red carpet. There were photographers and fans on both sides of the red carpet. There was also a wall of celebrities signing autographs. Spiritual cultivation was dumbfounded. Chapter 238. In the waiting area, Xiao Xueqing was wearing a white gown with diamonds. The cost of this gown was more than 100,000 yuan. She looked youthful, not beautiful, and the huge necklace hanging on her white neck was particularly eye-catching. However, at this moment, her face was very ugly. The company had arranged an opportunity for her, but it was a little shabby. She had to enter the venue as the female companion of a guest. Originally, Xiao Xueqing was unwilling. It was too embarrassing. However, Lai Jie said that the reporters and fans outside didn't know who she was attending RV's anniversary celebration. In order to gain exposure and survive in the entertainment industry, she had to give it her all. It was already very cold in Galuya near November. Xiao Xueqing was wearing an off-shoulder jacket, revealing her beautiful calves. When the cold wind blew, her teeth chattered. If it weren't for the thick makeup on her face, her lips would have turned purple and her face would have turned blue. Why isn't he here yet? Xiao Xueqing stomped her feet and waited for the arrival of the distinguished guest named Long Tianyi. However, no matter how long she waited, he still didn't come. Just when she was about to take out her phone to ask her agent, There was a cry of surprise. She saw a beautiful woman in an evening gown holding a man's arm under the flashing lights. They walked in unhurriedly. Swish. Xiao Xueqing's face turned pale. She looked at this scene in disbelief. The anger in her heart was rising. This man was RV's distinguished guest, Mr. Long Tianyi, and the beautiful woman holding his arm was Bai Xian from the same company. How can this be? Why is Bai Xian holding his arm? What is this? Li Jie, who was outside the venue, also saw this and was stunned. Didn't Bai Xian have an invitation letter? Why did she still hold Long Tianyi's arm and go in? However, she soon understood what was going on. This was to kill Xiao Xueqing's opportunity so that she couldn't go on stage. This kind of trick was very common in the entertainment industry, and it was also the most effective and vicious. The little assistant's eyes turned red and tears welled up in her eyes. How can you bully people like this? It's bad enough that you snatched the invitation, but you even snatched the opportunity to enter as a foil. Are you trying to kill us all? Xiao Xueqing stood in the wind. She even forgot about the cold, and her eyes gradually became dull. Umph. Bai Xian sneered when she saw Xiao Xueqing standing in the waiting area. Scram. Someone was already shouting, "Little White, look over here. This way." Bai Xian put her hands on her hips and showed off her charm to her heart's content. She was extremely excited. This was the fashion capital. Her every move would be spread all over the world. When it was spread back to the country, her value would be 100 times higher. Xiao Xueqing could only stand in the wind and endure the cold. It was a pity that she had spent more than 100,000 yuan on this dress for this show. Xiao Xueqing turned around dejectedly and slipped away like a loser. When she turned around, she saw a man. He said, "What's wrong? Were you bullied again?" Xiao Xueqing's eyes lit up. "Jiang Xiu," Jiang Xiu said. "A superstar actually remembers my name." Xiao Xueqing saw that Jiang Xiu seemed to have forgotten all the unhappiness just now. Her eyes lit up and flashed. "Why are you here?" Jiang Xiu waved the invitation in his hand and said, "I'm here on behalf of a friend." Xiao Xueqing almost screamed, "Invitation?" Jiang Xiu almost turned around and left. He was not used to this kind of situation. It was just buying something. Was he afraid that he couldn't buy it if he had the money? He didn't expect to see this scene. Xiao Xueqing asked nervously, Do you have a date?" Jiang Xiu said, "Not for the time being." I. Xiao Xueqing held Jiang Xiu's hand without hesitation and said, "You're so lucky. I'll be your date. Remember to walk slowly. When I stop, you must stop with me. Follow my rhythm." Then, Jiang Xiu was pulled onto the red carpet. "Xiao Xiao. It's Xiao Xiao." The fans at the scene screamed excitedly. In terms of popularity, Xiao Xueqing was definitely above Bai Xian. However, Bai Xian's background was stronger than hers. "Xiao Xiao, look here. Xiao Xiao, give me a smile." Xiao Xueqing was also used to big occasions. She put her hands on her hips, looked back, and smiled. Although some foreigners didn't know who this celebrity from China was, they also picked up their cameras to take pictures when they saw how passionate the fans were. The commotion attracted Bai Xian's attention. She turned her head and her expression changed. How did she get in? Who's the man beside her? She couldn't help but clench her fists. The carefully arranged show was ruined just like that. With Jiang Xiu's deliberate cooperation, the red carpet was walked very slowly. Xiao Xueqing attracted a lot of attention. When they walked to the center of the venue, Xiao Xueqing said to Bai Xian, "I'm sorry to disappoint you." Bai Xian snorted coldly. The staff at the door said, "Sir, please show us your invitation." The outside of the venue was used for commercial packaging and promotion of RV. It was open to the public, but inside was a completely private space. It was a social event for the most upper-class people in Jieluja. Jiang Xiu handed his invitation over. After the staff looked at it, he said in surprise, "Sir, the VIP name on this card is Wang Xintong. It's clearly a lady." Jiang Xiu said, "I'm her friend. I'm here on her behalf." The staff said, "I see. Please come in." Bai Xian's face turned green when she saw Jiang Xiu bring Xiao Xueqing into the banquet hall. "Tianyi, do you know him?" Long Tianyi shook his head. He wasn't at the castle that day and didn't see Jiang Xiao. I heard from the waiter that the owner of the invitation is Wang Xintong, the talented daughter of the Wang family. However, I heard that the Wang family entered the market to consolidate Jiangnan's assets. She probably can't come, so she got a subordinate to come. Let's go in. The elegant sound of a violin resounded in the banquet hall. European men in suits came and went. There were also madams in expensive clothes. Of course, there were many top European and American celebrities. Bai Xian said, "Is Wang Xintong the executive CEO of Zhongtian?" "Yes." Bai Xian said, "I heard that Zhongtian spent more than $1 billion to get RV's general agency in the Asia-Pacific region. I don't know if this is true." This news didn't get much attention in other places, but it was very popular in the entertainment industry. Bai Xian, who had a lot of connections, had heard about it long ago and had her eyes on it. She wanted to get RV's spokesperson, so of course she was very concerned. The endorsement fee wasn't the main point. What was important was that RV's spokespeople were all the most popular celebrities in the world. Whoever could be the spokesperson would instantly become an international celebrity. "We can't let her beat us to it." Long Tianyi said, "Don't worry. I know all the young masters in the country, and there's no such person. Moreover, the clothes he's wearing are just ordinary goods. He's a gold-collar worker. He should be Wang Xintong's employee in Galuya. If Xiao Xueqing places her bets on him, she'll definitely end up being cheated of her money and body." This was normal. The executives of some big companies would use some of their power to deal with female celebrities and take advantage of them. After Xiao Xueqing entered the banquet hall, she attracted the attention of many men, especially the Chinese. Xiao Xueqing was quite famous. "Isn't this Miss Xu?" A man in his 40s came up to talk to her. "I really like your songs." Xiao Xueqing replied politely, "Thank you." "Miss Xu, are you here to compete for RV's spokesperson?" This man was very knowledgeable. His gaze swept across all the female celebrities in the banquet hall, meaning that she had many potential competitors. "I'll take you to see Mr. Lee from North Korea. He's the spokesperson for RV in China. Whoever he says can be that person." This middle-aged man was not so kind. Everyone knew what he was thinking. Xiao Xueqing smiled and shook her head. "Thank you." She had always been a singer and would never do anything that would make her feel bad. However, the higher she went in the entertainment industry, the more she felt that she had no choice. "You really don't need it? This is a rare opportunity." The middle-aged man looked at her chest. On the other hand, Jiang Xiao was very curious as to what kind of godly abilities this Mr. Lee from North Korea had. RV's distributor in the Asia-Pacific region was the Zhongtian Group. In other words, it belonged to him, Jiang Xiao. What did this Mr. Lee have to make decisions for him? Long Tianyi said from afar. "Xiaobai, I'll take you to see Mr. Lee. If he says he'll let you be RV's spokesperson, then it's basically a done deal." Bai Xian said, "Really? Then take me there quickly." Chapter 239. The middle-aged man on the side seemed to have heard about the discord between Xiao Xueqing and Bai Xian. "Miss Xu, this is a rare opportunity. If you let someone else take the lead, it would be too late to regret it. A big shot like Mr. Lee is a man of his word. She said who the agent is, so she won't change it." Xiao Xueqing hesitated. Just now, she was almost rejected outside the door. The blow to her heart was still very big, and it also made her understand the importance of background. At this moment, her heart was very conflicted, especially when she saw Bai Xian being brought to see Mr. Lee. She became more and more anxious. "Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee is here." Following these exclamations, countless people rushed over and saw a man in a white suit walking out. "Mr. Lee." The middle-aged man couldn't care less about Xiao Xueqing, and also went up to greet him. "Little Cool." The man in the white suit was obviously younger than the other party, but he called the other party Little Cool, appearing to be high and mighty, and beside him was a beautiful girl. Today, she was wearing a red evening dress, like a flame, and under the control of her cold temperament, she seemed so contradictory and extraordinary, and for a moment, She suppressed all the female stars present. Facing the enthusiasm and flattery of the crowd, this Mr. Li's attitude was incomparably arrogant, like a king. Mr. Li. Seeing Long Tianyi, Long Yingqing's face was cold, and she did not say anything. However, Mr. Li said, "Tianyi, you're here too." Originally, Long Tianyi didn't want to come. There were enough people from the Long family, but because of the request of Xiao Xueqing's boss, he came. However, attending a banquet was not a big deal. "Mr. Li, this is my friend, Miss Bai Xian." Mr. Li glanced at Bai Xian. In terms of looks and figure, they were not bad, but here, there were many celebrities gathered. There were many top female stars of different nationalities present, so they seemed mediocre, not to mention compared to the beautiful fiancée beside Mr. Li. "That's right," Mr. Li lightly praised. Long Tianyi was overjoyed, and Bai Xian, who was beside him, was even more ecstatic. She knew who the person in front of her was. Long Yingqing, who was on the side, did not speak from beginning to end. He was used to this kind of thing. "Miss Xu, what about you?" The middle-aged man stared at Xiao Xueqing. Xiao Xueqing was young and pure, and she had never been involved in any scandals. She was the type of girl that he liked, and he was even a little obsessed with her. Xiao Xueqing shook her head without much decisiveness. She could not do it. Mr. Li walked into the hall with his fiancée. Tonight's auction had already begun. Jiang Xiu asked, "Why don't you go over? Such a good opportunity?" Xiao Xueqing said, "There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. I know very well what that person is thinking. Sometimes I waver, but I always feel conflicted." When the middle-aged man saw that Xiao Xueqing had rejected him and even chatted with Jiang Xiu, a trace of coldness flashed through his eyes. "Today is the anniversary of our RV. We will take out a part of our collection to sell. Gentlemen, please express enough sincerity for your lady," the supporter said humorously. Long Yingqing, who was following Mr. Li, reached out and took a glass of champagne. A pair of dull and lifeless eyes suddenly widened, as if they had been injected with chicken blood. She saw Jiang Xiu, and Jiang Xiu, this guy actually looked like a rich person, chatting with a female star. She shook her head in disbelief. Illusion, it must be an illusion. But Jiang Xiu was standing there alive. "It's really that bastard. Why is he haunting me like a ghost?" Mr. Li seemed to still care about the fiancée beside him. He noticed that Long Yingqing's gaze was on a man. His eyes immediately turned cold. "Who is that kid?" The people beside him looked at each other, and no one could answer. At this time, some people from the Long family also came out and noticed Jiang Xiu. Long Yingqing's uncle, Long Xiaoru's eyes immediately widened. He felt that something was wrong. This kid actually came here. He must be here to cause trouble. Long Xiu's expression also changed greatly. Why is he here? They used Jiang Xiu to control Long Yingqing, but once this person caused trouble here, Long Yingqing would not have a good ending. They would also not have a good fruit to eat. At that time, no one would have a good ending. Immediately, the people from the Long family present became nervous. "Hurry up and get someone to drive him away. If something happens, it'll be troublesome." Jiang Xiu naturally noticed. He didn't expect to meet the Long family here. However, this time, everyone in the Long family thought of him as a jinx. Seeing Long Xiaoru come over, Jiang Xiu had a faint smile on his face. Xiao Xueqing on the side was a little nervous. Although she didn't know the man in front of her, she knew that this person was definitely not simple. He was not someone a small star like them could provoke. He coldly questioned Jiang Xiu. "You actually dare to come here? I thought you were a smart person. It seems that I misunderstood." Jiang Xiu said, "Why can't I appear here?" "Why?" Long Xiaoru coldly smiled. "Because you are not worthy. Where do you think this is? Is this a place where people like you can come? Everyone here is 1,000 times more noble than you. Must you come here to show your lowly status?" Jiang Xiu's expression gradually became cold. Long Xiaoru said, "I advise you to leave immediately. Don't force me to use force." Jiang Xiu said, "If you want to drive me away, you don't seem to have the right." Long Xiaoru's expression became even colder. Xiao Xueqing's heart became uneasy. As this person said, Jiang Xiu's purpose in coming here today might not be so simple. Thinking that Jiang Xiu's name was not on the invitation, Xiao Xueqing was even more worried. Long Xiaoru waved to a black bodyguard standing in the distance. The man walked over and asked, "Mr. Long, what can I do for you?" This person sneaked in. "He's not on the invitation list. I suspect that he's a thief." There would be a jewelry auction here, so of course it would attract the attention of thieves. These words immediately hit the bodyguard's sensitive nerve. "Sir, please show me your invitation letter." Jiang Xiu knew what Long Xiaoru was worried about. He was worried that his and Long Yingqing's relationship would be exposed and Mr. Li would find out. They were afraid that this matter would blow up. But how could he, Jiang Luoxia, let such a thing happen to him? His arrogance was far from what these people could imagine. "I threw it away." The invitation letter was like a movie ticket to him. Of course, he threw it away after entering the venue. He was all alone, so it was uncomfortable to hold such a big invitation letter. The bodyguard said, "Threw it away?" "Hee, sir, your words are hard to believe." Long Tianyan by Xian saw that there was a situation here, and also came over. They watched with interest, especially by Xian who was gloating. She couldn't wait for Xiao Xueqing to be driven out. Then, RV's endorsement in China would most likely be hers. Xiao Xueqing, on the other hand, said nervously, "Mr. Bodyguard, we did have an invitation just now. This Mr. Long and Miss Bai can testify for us because we registered together." Bai Xian, quickly help us explain. Bai Xian said, "What's there to explain? I was chatting with Mr. Long and didn't pay attention." Xiao Xueqing widened her eyes and said, "You." The bodyguard said, "Sir, I'm sorry, but you might be in trouble." Each of them was over 1.9 meters tall and looked very fierce. They were all wearing suits and sunglasses, and had already gathered around with bad intentions. It seemed that they wanted to deal with Jiang Xiu. They approached Jiang Xiu without leaving a trace. It seemed that if Jiang Xiu didn't cooperate, they would take him down directly. Xiao Xueqing was so nervous that her pretty face turned pale. If this matter was spread back to China, who knew what the reporters would write? "I'm here on behalf of Miss Wang Xintong. You can check at the front desk." Long Xiaoru said, "Okay, you said you're here on behalf of the Wang family. What are you here on behalf of the Wang family for?" Jiang Xiu said, "Of course I'm here to buy jewelry." At this moment, the auction began. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to auction a crown chain from the 18th century. It's an item from the palace and belonged to the Galois imperial concubine. The starting price is 5 million euros. Each bid is 500,000 euros. Buy it. If you buy it, we'll believe you. If you don't, then don't blame us for being rude." Chapter 240. The tiara necklace was exquisitely crafted and inlaid with diamonds. It sparkled under the light and gave off a sense of luxury. The cost alone was not cheap. Coupled with the lost craftsmanship of the last century, and its historical significance, the starting price of 5 million euros was not high at all. The market value could reach 10 million euros or even higher. Long Xiaoru said, "This is only the first item. The following items will only be more expensive." His eyes were filled with disdain. Not to mention Jiang Xiu. Even they would be in the limelight if they won the first item. 10 million euros was equivalent to 100 million yuan. 100 million for a piece of jewelry was a huge sum for anyone. "Are you sure you're here to buy jewelry? Then why don't you buy it?" Of course, Jiang Xiu was here to buy jewelry. However, he didn't care if he wanted to buy jewelry or not. It had nothing to do with Long. He glanced at him coldly. "Do I need to tell you what I do? Who do you think you are?" Long Xiaoru's eyes widened. "How dare you talk to me like that?" The surrounding Long family members were in an uproar. A kid who came out of nowhere dared to talk back to the Long family. They boasted that the Long family was a big family in China, and could be looked down upon by foreigners. However, they could not stand the ridicule of a lowly kid like Jiang Xiu. They all glared at Jiang Xiu angrily. Jiang Xiu said, "Why? Are you a noble in China? Can't I talk to you?" Xiao Xuetong quickly tugged at Jiang Xiu's clothes, indicating that he should stop talking. These big shots were not to be offended. The consequences would be unimaginable. Long Xiaoru's face turned colder. I think you're here to cause trouble. Bodyguards, this is a thief. Hurry up and arrest him. The bodyguards did not belong to Long Xiaoru. They would listen to whatever he said. Those who were here were all high officials and nobles. They did not dare to offend them. The bodyguards were not stupid either. They could tell that these two people were not on good terms. My words don't matter? Do you want me to look for Mr. Li? At that time, it's hard to say if you can keep your jobs. The bodyguard's expression changed as he said, Sir, please come with us for a while. Please understand that we have to verify your identity. More and more people started to notice them. What's going on there? Looks like someone was caught sneaking in. Jiang Xiu said, He's a VIP, but am I not? Aren't you afraid that I'll make you lose your jobs by taking me away? Are you sure you don't have the ability to do that? The bodyguard. Those who could enter this place were no small matter. When Long Xiaoru saw that the bodyguards were intimidated, he frowned and said, He's just a poor boy. He can't even afford a single piece of jewelry here. He's just here to cause trouble. Why are you afraid of him? Hurry up and catch him. Jiang Xiu was nonchalant, non-committal. Long Yingqing saw that the situation was getting out of hand, and the surrounding crowd was gradually gathering. She walked over, and her beautiful brows were tightly knitted together. It's you again. That annoyance was written all over her beautiful face. Didn't I give you money? Do you really think you can take advantage of my Long family? Don't be stupid. What kind of existence is my Long family? How can you scheme against us? Long Yingqing thought that Jiang Xiu must have found out that the Long family was rich, and that the family had misunderstood her relationship with him, so she wanted to use this to make a fortune. This kind of opportunistic heart was really disgusting, but this kind of person was the one thing that this world did not lack. You still want that check? Stop dreaming. Long Yingqing worriedly turned around to look at Mr. Li, and found that he had indeed looked in her direction a few times. However, he still had to socialize with the people around him. Don't think about causing trouble here. There won't be a good outcome. Get someone to keep an eye on him. Long Xiaoru said. I don't need you to tell me that. After Long Yingqing finished speaking, she quickly returned to Mr. Li's side. She could not leave for too long. Otherwise, with that person's temper, she might get angry. Long Xiaoru said to the bodyguard, Listen carefully. If you don't dare to invite him out, then keep an eye on him. Once the jewelry auction is over, let him leave. The bodyguard nodded. If they were to forcefully take Jiang Xiu away, firstly, they were afraid that Jiang Xiu was really a VIP. Secondly, they were worried that Jiang Xiu would not cooperate and would disturb other guests. They could not afford to take that responsibility, so it was fine to keep an eye on him at the scene. Humph. Jiang Xiu snorted coldly. Buying something made people feel disgusted. After those people dispersed, Xiao Xuetong looked at those people who left and said with lingering fear, Those people are from the Long family. How bold, to actually be able to give orders here. The Long family is truly worthy of being a big family in China. How impressive. I say, how dare you go against them? Jiang Xiu said, You're just a bunch of chickens and dogs. Xiao Xueqing rolled her eyes. Do you know who the Long family is? The ignorant are fearless. Oh right, are you really here to buy jewelry? Jiang Xiu said. I'm really here to buy jewelry. Xiao Xueqing thought to herself, it would be strange if I believed you. However, she believed that Jiang Xiu was not a bad person. She could not forget the scene that day. If he was a bad person, he would not chase after the car for so long. Long Yingqing returned to Mr. Li's side. Mr. Li asked, Who is that person? Long Yingqing said, A person who wants to take advantage of my Long family. Mr. Li smiled faintly. He saw disgust on Long Yingqing's face, and even a trace of disdain. He knew how arrogant his fiancée was. Even in front of him, she was very arrogant. Sometimes, she even dared to treat his words as wind. Long Yingqing's aloofness was the most attractive thing about her. However, he wondered how this Mr. Li would feel if he knew that his noble fiancée had been drenched from head to toe by Jiang Xiu. Money and power will make people crazy. Long Yingqing said. I know how to deal with it. Mr. Li said. The best way to deal with this kind of person is to completely make him disappear from this world and intimidate those who have designs on the Long family. Don't make a fuss over nothing. Mr. Li smiled and pointed at the necklace. Do you like it? If you like it, I'll buy it for you. The item being auctioned now was that crown necklace. 12. 5 million euros going once. Long Yingqing was born into a wealthy family. Her vanity was not as strong as that of ordinary women. She was not obsessed with jewelry, but when a man gave a gift, she would not accept it. She nodded slightly. Seeing her nod, Mr. Li smiled. This fiancé of his was mature, cold, and emotionless. She would only show her feminine side in front of him. He raised his hand. Wow, Mr. Li also wants this jewelry. The auctioneer from the RV family was very excited. 15 million euros. He increased the bid by 5 million euros in one go, which turned into $20 million. It was really a big deal. At the same time, it was a warning to everyone present that he wanted this necklace. Under normal circumstances, everyone would understand the situation and stop bidding. However, the bidding just now was very strong. There was a European noble who seemed to have a special interest in this jewelry. It was the Cadillac family. 15,500,000 euros. The Cadillac noble bowed slightly to Mr. Li to show that it was a fair competition. Mr. Li said, 30 million euros. He was determined to get it. When this price was called, everyone was stunned. Then there was an uproar. It was really a big deal. He doubled the price. Did you think you were buying vegetables at the market? This was 15 million euros, more than 100 million. The Cadillac noble was stunned. This jewelry was once owned by his ancestors. It was sold because of poverty. Now that the family was on the right track again, he wanted to buy it back. He shook his head in amazement. 30 million euros was too crazy. It was just a crown necklace. Everyone knew that this jewelry basically belonged to Mr. Li. Congratulations, Mr. Li. Mr. Li shrugged his shoulders helplessly. I'm not a lady. I can't wear it. I should be congratulating Miss Long. Long Yingqing smiled shyly. 30 million euros going once. 30 million euros going twice. Just as the auctioneer was about to hit the hammer, a voice suddenly sounded. 100 million. 100 million euros. Hua. The entire banquet exploded. What kind of joke was this? Everyone's gaze swept over. Nobles, celebrities, and actresses all looked at the person who made the bid in shock. Jiang Xiu raised his hand calmly. Chapter 241. All the guests at the banquet focused their attention on Jiang Xiu. They were shocked. 100 million euros. 100 million euros to buy a string of jewelry. How rich must one be to do such a thing? Madness was not enough. The black bodyguard forgot to stop him. Xiao Xueqing, who was at the side, was even more dumbfounded. Did this guy just bid 100 million euros? She did, right? That's right. Bai Xian was completely stunned. 100 million euros. What kind of concept was that? His company might not even be worth 100 million euros if he sold it all. Long Yingqing's eyes almost popped out. She stared at Jiang Xiu without blinking. He must have lost his mind. Everyone in the Long family looked at Jiang Xiu in shock. This kid, was he really rich? They couldn't believe it, even if he was rich. Their first reaction was to be shocked by Jiang Xiu. 100 million euros to buy a string of jewelry, and it beat Mr. Li's price. But thinking about it carefully, did he have that much money? Mr. Li also looked at this person in shock. His eyes narrowed into a line. Jiang Xiu's face was calm and indifferent. He looked at the auctioneer and asked, What, didn't you hear clearly? Then I'll say it again. 100 million euros. The auctioneer came to his senses. Sir, are you sure? Jiang Xiu said, Why, I'm joking. At this moment, Xiao Xueqing's expression changed drastically. She hurriedly reached out to pull Jiang Xiu. This was not a place where such jokes could be made. This was a very serious auction house. Everything was modeled after the court in order to express its solemnity. Long Sheru said, If a false bid leads to a dispute, The auction house has the right to ask the court to let you pay according to the bid price. In other words, if you just bid for fun and can't pay, all your funds will be frozen by the court, and you will be forced to declare bankruptcy. You will also be imprisoned. Jiang Xiu said, noisy. He flipped his finger and took out a black bank card. The card flew accurately to the ranking table, shining under the light. It's Centurion Yintong. Everyone present was rich and powerful, and they knew the weight of the world's most mysterious card. It was the world's highest credit card, and it could enjoy top-notch honor, customized exclusive services, and unparalleled global expediency. King of cards. Shocked, this time he was really shocked. That card could overdraw up to 36 million euros, but it had to be known that the person who could get that card could easily take out 100 million euros. Everyone in the Long family was even more astonished. Wasn't he just a poor kid? This kid is really rich. I misjudged him. Long Yingqing's expression was also extremely complicated. She realized that her judgment of Jiang Xiu had never been right. A strange feeling arose in her heart. This brat was actually so rich. Xiao Xueqing quickly reminded Jiang Xiu. Hey, are you crazy? How can this thing be worth 100 million euros? Even 1,000 euros is too expensive. Don't buy it. Jiang Xiu said. Auctioneer, aren't you going to call the count? The auctioneer had just woken up. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Jiang Xiu. His body seemed to have a divine light, shining with golden light. 100 million euros going once. Most people present didn't know who he was. But he took out 100 million euros to buy something that was worth 5 million euros. This move was enough to make these people worship Jiang Xiu. 100 million euros going twice. Jiang Xiu said to Mr. Li. What, you're not playing anymore? Mr. Li's expression became ugly. It was indeed embarrassing to have his auction item stolen. He had bid 3,000 euros to show off. Well, he didn't show off and instead helped this kid. But the price of 100 million euros was too high. This thing wasn't worth it at all. No matter how rich someone was, they wouldn't joke around with 100 million euros. Mr. Li said, this jewelry isn't worth 100 million euros at all. Sir, if you like it, I'll let you have it. These words, he was going to force himself. Everyone present could see that the crown chain was worth less than 1,000 euros. Mr. Li bid 3,000 euros. And more than 1,000 euros all at once. Did he care about the real value of this jewelry? Not at all. The value of some things wasn't just the thing itself. Saying that this jewelry wasn't worth 100 million euros was really sour grapes. 100 million euros going thrice. The auctioneer banged the hammer. Sold. Long Yingqing's expression was ugly. This was not only a slap to Mr. Li's face, but also to her face. She said, I don't like that crown chain very much either. After losing this card, Wang Xintong immediately replaced it and gave it to Jiang Xiu along with her passport. After swiping the card, the relevant personnel respectfully returned the card to Jiang Xiu. The bodyguard on the side came to Jiang Xiu and said respectfully, I'm sorry, sir. We mistakenly believed other people's words. The Long family's expressions were extremely awkward. Long Xiaoru said, I didn't expect this kid to be such a character. I made a mistake. Using 100 million euros to buy a piece of jewelry. This pretentious act is bleeding internally. You know your own pain. Long Shui sneered. Puffing oneself up at one's own cost. Everyone's eyes were focused on Xiao Xueqing. This jewelry was definitely not worn by her, but by the lady beside her. For a moment, Xiao Xueqing was in the limelight. Xiao Xueqing was still a little confused. So you're that rich? She felt like she was in love. God had sent a rich Prince Charming into her life. The second auction item is a necklace. The starting price is 6 million euros. Everyone began to bid one after another. 5 million. This was the first time Mr. Li had failed. This time, he wanted to regain his face no matter what. He said to Long Yingqing, I'll buy it for you, okay? Long Yingqing nodded and glanced at Jiang Xiu. 10 million. He jumped straight up. This was the face he wanted. He had to get back what he had lost. 100 million euros. Whoosh. The crowd was in an uproar again. This was a head-on confrontation. How could this be? This was simply standing in front of the other party and slapping him in the face. Mr. Li was embarrassed. Mr. Li's face turned ashen. The people behind him even wanted to stand up and warn Jiang Xiu. He had already lost face once. If he lost face again, he would lose a lot of face. 150 million euros. Mr. Li said. Whoosh. The crowd was in an uproar. This was exciting. Jiang Xiu did not back down. 200 million euros. Mr. Li's face darkened. This was clearly not giving him face. 200 million, more than 2 billion euros. How was he going to explain this to his family? 250 million euros. Jiang Xiu said. 500 million euros. Whoosh. The eyes of the European tycoons, aristocrats, and actresses were about to pop out. 500 million euros. Oh my God. All eyes were on Mr. Li's face. They were waiting to see if he would bid. He had a standard North Korean man's face. His face was a little flat. At this time, his expression was very unnatural. The muscles at the corner of his mouth twitched. 500 million euros for a necklace. Even the world's most valuable heart of the ocean was only sold for 100 million euros. That was because it was taken back by the royal family. What was this now? He was going crazy. But if he backed down, where would he put his face? Long Yingqing was dumbfounded. She looked at Jiang Xiu in disbelief. He was still so young. Even if his family was rich, this was 500 million euros. No one, whether it was China, North Korea, Europe, West Asia, or the royal family, could be so calm. Who was he? Where did he come from? Bai Xian looked at Jiang Xiu in her dream. Hateful, too hateful. Xiao Xueqing had hooked up with such a rich young master. Then she looked at the man beside her. She thought Long Tianyi was very good, but now he was inferior to Jiang Xiu. 500 million euros going once. Going twice. Every time the number was called out, it was like a loud slap to Mr. Li's face. Going thrice sold. There was a warm and somewhat crazy applause. This matter would definitely sweep the European and American upper class tomorrow. It was too crazy. After 2 unsuccessful bids, Mr. Li did not bid again. His face was swollen. How could he continue to take it? He looked at Jiang Xiu and said lightly, "Young man, you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Sometimes, a moment of arrogance will make you regret it for the rest of your life." Chapter 242. Jiang Xiu smiled faintly and declined to comment. After that, Mr. Li didn't make a move, and neither did Jiang Xiu. He had already bought the 2 items he wanted. The auction continued, but no one had recovered from the previous 2 auctions. By the time the auction ended, everyone was still discussing. Everyone was secretly speculating about Jiang Xiu's background. Xiao Xueqing was also in the limelight. She was the woman standing beside Jiang Xiu. She asked, "Jiang Xiu, what does your family do? How come you're so rich?" Jiang Xiu said, "I used to sell fruits. Now I do everything." Xiao Xueqing said, "But 600 million euros to buy these 2 pieces of jewelry is really..." She didn't know what to say. In 2008, China's economy hadn't taken off yet. Millionaires in China were already considered rich. 600 million euros was more than 6 billion. It was simply unimaginable. Jiang Xiu didn't think much of it. At his level, money was just a worldly possession. Things that could be bought with money weren't valuable in his eyes. Things that were truly valuable couldn't be bought with money. After the auction ended, everyone went back to their normal social interactions. They chatted with wine glasses. Bai Xian said, "This time Xiao Xueqing stole the limelight. I'm afraid that RV's spokesperson will be snatched away." Jiang Xiu spent 600 million euros on RV's anniversary celebration. RV also stole the limelight. The chances of the spokesperson being snatched away are very small. She was unwilling, very unwilling, but there was nothing she could do. Who told Xiao Xueqing to find a tycoon who could casually spend 600 million euros? Even the Europeans were shocked. Looking at the Western female stars, they were going crazy. Their expressions were so exaggerated that powder was about to fall from their faces. Long Tianyi said, Humph, there are many rich people in this world, but not many people with power. Mr. Lee is one of them. As RV's spokesperson, as long as Mr. Lee speaks, RV's family won't dare to disobey. Bai Xian's eyes lit up. Really? Long Tianyi said. Of course. That kid stole the limelight, but the consequence was that he offended Mr. Lee. People who offend Mr. Lee never have a good ending. Mr. Lee walked towards Jiang Xiu and sized up Jiang Xiu from head to toe with a smile. He was very confident and had the aura of a monarch. You spent so much money because you want to help Miss Xiao Xueqing become the spokesperson for RV. Jiang Xiu smiled faintly and declined to comment. Mr. Lee laughed. His laughter was full of mockery. Jiang Xiu asked, "What are you laughing at?" Mr. Lee said, "I'm laughing at your ignorance. No matter how much money you have, it's not worth a single word from me. I'll give the position of RV's spokesperson in China to whomever I want. Long Tianxiang recommended Bai Xian to me, and I think she's not bad, so I'll definitely give her the position." However, Jiang Xiu said, "Why don't I believe you?" Mr. Lee said, "That's why I said you're ignorant. You don't know the rules of this game at all. Kid, no matter how much money you have, if you don't have absolute strength to protect yourself, you're just a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Everyone, our RV lady invites you in." Along the way, RV's people came and delayed Jiang Xiu for a while, allowing him to swipe his card. They asked Jiang Xiu how he was going to hand over the jewelry. Jiang Xiu only said lightly, "Just take it to my driver." It was so casual and so annoying, but it scared the people from the RV family. Sir, this was 600 million euros. Now the jewels were trembling violently in their hands. When Jiang Xiu and Xiao Xueqing entered the banquet, Mr. Li and the Long family members were already there. Of course, Bai Xian was also there. It was very quiet inside, in the style of a Gaulish manor. Inside, Jiang Xiu saw a European woman in her 70s or even older. Her face was full of wrinkles, but she was dressed elegantly. This woman was Ms. RV, who single-handedly founded RV's top luxury brand. Ms. RV gave Jiang Xiu and Xiao Xueqing a European aristocratic salute. "Honorable sir, I'm very happy that you like our jewelry so much. Please sit down." She asked the servant to pour a glass of expensive red wine for Jiang Xiu and Xiao Xueqing. "Sir, you should have conditions to bid for our jewelry at such a high price. Why don't you tell us?" In fact, the old lady's heart was like a mirror. However, Jiang Xiu said, "No conditions." Xiao Xueqing really wanted Jiang Xiu to help her get the spokesperson, but she didn't say anything in the end. After all, the relationship between the two wasn't that good. If Jiang Xiu didn't take the initiative to mention it, she couldn't open her mouth. Ms. RV said, "In that case, it can't be better. Then according to Mr. Li's intention, RV's representative in China will be signed to Miss Bai Xian." Xiao Xueqing helplessly lowered her head, and the winner, Bai Xian, was so happy that she almost jumped up. Her whole body was trembling, and she was so excited that she couldn't control herself. As soon as the news spread, coupled with a more impressive advertising campaign, it immediately became an international model. Xiao Xueqing was directly one level lower than her. Mr. Li glanced at Jiang Xiu indifferently. "Now you understand, boy. Some things can't be decided by money. In my eyes, you're just a hopping grasshopper. No matter how hopping you are, you're still a grasshopper." "Wait," Ms. RV asked in surprise. "Is there a problem?" Jiang Xiu said, "Of course there's a problem. What right does Ms. RV have to decide the spokesperson for China?" Everyone present wondered if Jiang Xiu was stupid. The RV brand was owned by Ms. RV. Of course, Ms. RV had the final say on who would be the spokesperson for China. Just her name alone was enough. Long Xiaoru couldn't help but say, "Do you think you're so great just because you have some money?" Ms. RV said, "Sir, what do you mean by that?" Jiang Xiu said, "I know something, but I don't know if it's true. I heard that RV has found a representative in Asia." RV nodded and said, "It's true. RV was a luxury brand, but it was doing very well in Europe and America. It could be said to be the top luxury brand with great influence. However, its performance in the Asia-Pacific region was mediocre. It could even be said that they had not been able to enter the Asia-Pacific region market for a long time. After many discussions, the RV family felt that it was caused by cultural conflicts. Therefore, they found a representative company. Wang Xintong bought the representative rights with a sky-high price of 1.5 billion renminbi and a proposal. Jiang Xiu said, "Since the representative rights have been given to someone, Ms. RV seems to have no right to interfere with the other party's operations in the Asia-Pacific region. Of course, it's not up to Ms. RV to decide who the spokesperson for China will be." Mr. Li said, "Childish. Whoever I say will be RV's spokesperson for China will be that person." His tone was firm and domineering. It felt as if even Ms. RV had to listen to him. Ms. RV said, "What Mr. Li says is what I say. I will inform Ms. Wang who got the endorsement. She has no reason to object to the decision of the headquarters." Jiang Xiu said, "You're wrong. She will definitely object." Ms. RV didn't understand. Jiang Xiu said, "Because I'm her boss." Wow. Mr. Li, the entire Long family, Bai Xian, and Xiao Xueqing were all shocked. They didn't expect this person to be so secretive. Ms. RV also had a look of shock. Jiang Xiu said, "I don't think Bai Xian is suitable. As long as the representative rights for the Asia-Pacific region are in my hands, she will never be able to become RV's spokesperson. This is what I said." Well, Mr. Li was slapped in the face for the third time in public. His face instantly turned green. It was really painful. Jiang Xiu said, "Xiao Xueqing will be the new RV spokesperson." The ups and downs of life were too fast and too exciting. Xiao Xueqing thought that she had no chance of being RV's spokesperson. She didn't expect things to take such a turn. Ms. RV said, "What if I insist on using Bai Xian?" Jiang Xiu said, "I insist on using Xiao Xueqing." Ms. RV said, "Then I will revoke your representative rights for the Asia-Pacific region." Jiang Xiu said, "That's your right. However, I think your RV family has to prepare compensation. I think this fee won't be low. You have to consider whether you should pay for it yourself or look for him. But don't forget how he made a fool of himself at the auction just now." The representative fee was more than 1 billion, which was more than 100 million euros. Under normal circumstances, the penalty for breach of contract would definitely not be low. According to Wang Xintong's business genius, the penalty for breach of contract would naturally be ridiculously high. It would definitely not be less than 10 times. He can't even afford to buy jewelry for his girlfriend and his old face. Would he be willing to pay the penalty for breach of contract? Damn it. A man standing behind Mr. Li angrily rushed out. He pulled out a sharp long knife and slashed at Jiang Xiu. For a moment, the bright knife light suddenly chilled the entire room. An overwhelming knife chi came head-on. "Wait. You kid, you really want to go against me? Do you know who I am?" Chapter 243. The Long family was considered a wealthy family in Hua Nation. Mr. Li from North Korea was definitely not a simple person to be able to make such a family bow down to him and have such a great reputation in Europe. Jiang Xiu waited for him with great interest, waiting for him to tell him who he was. Mr. Li said, "Kid, you underestimate the power I have." He raised his wine glass and took a sip like a king. "My name is Li. Here, Ji." The moment the words left his mouth, the air seemed to stagnate. This was a well-known name in North Korea. There was no imperial power in North Korea, but Li Ziji was like a descendant of imperial power in North Korea. He was indescribably noble because the Li family had a great say in the imperial court. The proud prince who bragged to the Jiang family was the real Li Ziji in Jiangnan. He studied at the Royal Academy of Never Setting Sun since he was a child. His classmates were all members of the royal family of various countries. Whether it was their background or connections, they were all indescribably noble. Now you know? He was very confident in his influence. Never heard of it. Jiang Xiu shook his head. Spiritual cultivation was not deliberately humiliating him. He really had never heard of it. Everyone's expression changed. It was fine if you didn't know about Li Ziji's identity, but now that you've revealed it, You still have such an attitude? What was even more unknown was that Mr. Li's family possessed unimaginable power, power that was superior to ordinary mortals. Otherwise, why would Ms. RV support him so relentlessly and not hesitate to offend the person who spent 600 million euros to buy her family's jewelry and promote RV to the top? Logically speaking, with his background, it should not be difficult for him to come up with €1 billion. However, that was not the case. It was like a certain richest man in Hua Nation's future. He said he was worth hundreds of billions, but it was difficult for him to move a few hundred million. He had to go to the bank for a project that was worth $1 billion. The Li family was short of money. Therefore, if he could not win with money, he would compete with power, using power and power to oppress others. This was how officials exploited businessmen. Jiang Xiu said, "Sounds awesome. He should be someone important. Then why don't you take out a few billion euros to terminate the contract with RV? Once the contract is terminated, you can choose whoever you want to be RV's spokesperson. If you don't have money, then don't talk nonsense. Beggars insist on pretending to be rich." Li Ziji's expression changed greatly. Damn it. Jiningrong, the martial cultivator behind him, was furious. How dare a Chinese man be so disrespectful and humiliate his master? In an instant, he drew his saber and slashed towards Jiang Xiu at lightning speed. The saber radiance turned into a beam of light that stretched several meters away, causing the grass on the ground to flip up. It seemed like it was going to cut Jiang Xiu in half like a piece of grass. Those who humiliate Mr. Li die. Sky dance slash. The air made a tearing sound under the saber strength. The blade strike had already been infused with qi energy, indicating that this person's cultivation level was very high. He might have reached the peak of the transcendent state, and was only half a step away from the demigod state. As soon as the saber light was slashed out, it arrived in front of Jiang Xiu in a flash, and was about to kill him. A cruel smile appeared on Jiningrong's face. Those who humiliated the country, and Mr. Li should be sentenced to death. He aimed at Jiang Xiu's central axis, and would cut Jiang Xiu in half neatly from the middle. Heh. Mr. Li didn't even look. He picked up his wine glass and enjoyed the finest wine that had been brewed in the 70s. Controlling Jiang Xiu's life was as easy as eating and drinking. Long Yingqing's eyes widened in shock. At that moment, she couldn't tell what she was feeling. She hated Jiang Xiu so much that she gritted her teeth. However, at that moment, when she saw Jiang Xiu about to be killed, she sympathized with Jiang Xiu. She even felt a little sad and blamed him for digging his own grave. You don't know what Mr. Li means and how powerful the forces behind him are. Some people are not to be trifled with. However, Jiang Xiu slowly looked up and glanced around. That glance was like Bodhi opening his Dharma eye. It was as if the entire time and space had been stretched infinitely, and everything became abnormally slow. Boom. It was as if thunder had exploded in the field. A wisp of white smoke, like smoke from a cigar, flew out in an extremely slow manner. It was as if it was dissipating, but it was accompanied by a terrifying sound of thunder, revealing an unparalleled power. Qi energy spread out in all directions with that wisp of white smoke as the center. Xiao Xueqing was pushed back several steps, and the luxurious rattan chair she was sitting on was sent flying. That power was nothing more than a bomb explosion. The saber radiance and the sound of the saber dissipated like the people around it. The cruel expression on Jiningrong's face stiffened, and was replaced by endless fear. Clang, clang, clang. His saber was still chopping down, but the blade could not withstand such a degree of power at all. Under the horrified gaze of everyone, the long saber broke inch by inch, all the way to the handle. Jiningrong flew out, and hit the stylishly designed floor-to-ceiling window behind him that was at least 10 to 20 meters away. With a bang, he smashed into it and fell into the dark room. Silence, complete silence. They were shocked, really shocked. Jiang Xiu could actually release such a terrifying power with a snap of his fingers, and defeat the saber expert beside Mr. Li. Oh my god! What kind of power was that? Everyone present looked at Jiang Xiu in a different light. Xiao Xueqing was dumbfounded. Her understanding of Jiang Xiu was refreshed again and again. At first, she thought he was a student in Jiang City, and then he became a tycoon. Now, damn, he was acting, right? Even acting wasn't so exaggerated. Xiao Xueqing and Bai Xian did not understand the industry, but everyone in the Long family knew. They were all stunned. The person they looked down on, treated like an ant, and used to deal with Long Yingqing was actually such a terrifying person. They felt a burst of fear in their hearts, and cold sweat broke out on their backs. Long Yingqing was even more shocked. This was Jiang Xiu's true strength. It was too terrifying. He had shown mercy that day. Otherwise, even if she could keep her life, her legs would be crippled. There was also an expert standing behind the Long family, Lin Yao. He thought that he might not be able to block that saber just now, but Jiang Xiu had only flicked his fingers. What level had this person reached in martial arts? Could it be that he was a martial arts master, or even a demigod? Lin Yao did not dare imagine that this person was still so young. As for Mr. Li, he looked as if he had been lit up. He held the bottom of a wine glass in his hand. The wine glass had already shattered, and the red wine inside spilled all over his body. Jiang Xiu said, "You actually want to fight with me? Ignorant, stupid. It wasn't easy for you to be a civilized person and use proper methods to deal with this matter, but you just had to force our spiritual cultivation to make a move. It's still the same words. If you want Bai Xian to be RV's spokesperson in China, then RV will have to break the contract and take back the agency." Li Zaiji was someone who had seen a lot, so he was able to maintain his composure. "Your cultivation is not weak. No wonder you are so arrogant. You don't even give face to my Li family, but you still don't know how powerful my Li family is. My Li family has a demigod, and a demigod is still in Heaven's Gate. Do you know what a demigod is? Do you know what kind of existence a demigod is? You are a martial cultivator, so you should know. Then you should know your own limits." Jiang Xiu looked indifferently at Li Zaiji, who had been spilled all over by the red wine. He was still high and mighty, speaking with fervor and assurance as if he was the ruler of the world. "Do you know why your country has been holed up in China all these years, allowing others to bully you? Because your country's demigods are weak. There are no more than 2 demigods in China who can fight against my Li family's demigods. Not to mention, the Li family has Heaven's Gate behind them. Back off obediently, and I will spare your life on account of your difficult cultivation." Not far behind him, Lin Yao was extremely shocked. He looked at Jiang Xiu, who was not even 20 years old and had the surname Jiang. He felt that these clues were somewhat familiar. Lin Yao's expression changed drastically. "Did he just say that he is Wang Xintong's boss?" Long Yingqing said. "Yes, is there a problem?" Lin Yao could no longer stay calm. Cold sweat dripped down his forehead. "Wang Xintong is Jiang Luoxia's spokesperson in Jiangnan. Since he is Wang Xintong's boss, then isn't he?" Lin Yao's expression changed drastically. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets as he looked at Jiang Xiu. Li Zaiji's expression was arrogant. "But, you have to hand over the spokesperson of RV. Jiang Xiu said. "What if I don't hand it over?" Li Zaiji's expression darkened. "Then be prepared to become enemies with the Li family and face the wrath of the Li family. But don't blame me for not reminding you, unless you are Si Wuxia or Jiang Luoxia. Otherwise, the result is only death," Jiang Xiu said. "I am already prepared, but are you ready?" Li Zaiji said. "What do you mean?" Chapter 244. After hearing Lin Yao's words, a person appeared in the minds of the Long family members. The Long family was a prominent family in Hua Nation. Moreover, they were in the Elysium, so the Long family members were naturally familiar with the demigod ranking. Not long ago, there was a huge change in the demigod ranking. A person rose like a comet, and arrived in Hua Nation with the bearing of a king. He ascended to the top of the demigod ranking, and was known as the #1 demigod in Hua Nation. He was ranked 3rd on the demigod ranking. This was the highest ranking demigod in Hua Nation to date. Rumor had it that this person was the master of the Wang family in Jiangnan. He was in his 20s and his surname was Jiang. Slowly, that mythical figure merged with Jiang Xiu in front of them. Long Yingqing felt as if her entire brain had exploded. Everyone's eyes were filled with extreme fear. It exploded. Lin Yao cried out in horror. Mr. Jiang, hold on. Meanwhile, Li Ziji was still looking down at Jiang Xiu as if he was giving orders. You're ready? What do you mean? Ready for what? Kill you, it was too late. Everything was too late. When Lin Yao and the Long family members realized that this inconspicuous young man in front of them was the most popular person in Hua Nation, Jiang Luoxia, everything was already too late. Jiang Xiu's eyes were cold and sharp. He waved his right hand at Li Ziji. He was wearing a suit with tight cuffs, but it felt as if he was carrying a tremendous force. Boom! With a thunderous explosion, a monstrous force was released from his sleeves. This invisible force was so great that it was as if a giant god had waved his hand. The air, grass, and rattan chairs in front of him were all crushed into powder. Even the corridor, stairs, street lamps, and wooden pillars in the distance were crushed into powder. This force was so powerful that it made large bulldozers look like child's play. It came quickly, fiercely, and with destructive power. Everything in front of this force disintegrated. Panic, infinite panic. Ms. R.V. Long Yingqing, Xiao Xueqing, the whole Long family, all looked at this scene in horror. Li Ziji's bodyguard, who fell into the room, rushed out angrily. Since he entered a famous sect, he had never been defeated. He vowed to tear Jiang Xiu into pieces, but he was stunned. Was this still the power of a human? He was actually so strong. What made them even more terrified was that this power was aimed at Li Ziji. Even rocks had been crushed into powder, so how could Li Ziji's body of flesh and blood withstand it? When the bodyguards in the banquet hall heard the sound of glass shattering, they immediately rushed over. Today, the black bodyguard had mistakenly believed the Long family's words and offended that super VIP. Now that there was a situation, it was a good opportunity for them to perform well. However, when they rushed over, they saw this scene. Their mouths opened so wide that they could swallow an egg. Oh my God, their legs went soft. The 1.9 tall big black bodyguard knelt on the ground and respectfully prostrated himself on the ground, as if he was worshipping a god. This kind of power could only be achieved by a god. Long Yingqing, who was sitting closest to Li Ziji, felt a force that seemed to have materialized whistling past. With a muffled bang in her ears, the high and mighty Mr. Li exploded into a bloody mist. Ah! An extremely frightened scream rang out, and everything returned to silence. The silence was frightening. God! Lin Yao had seen a top demigod make a move, but they didn't have such a terrifying destructive power. Under such power, the body was so fragile that it couldn't withstand a single blow. It was like the law of destruction, destroying everything. Dead? Mr. Li is dead. Seeing that Li Ziji's seat was now empty, they felt a sharp pain in their eyes. They stared so hard that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The bloody mist that filled the air, and the pungent smell of blood reminded them that what they saw just now was not an illusion. Silence, a deathly silence. Everyone's heart was shocked. At this moment, they were almost suffocating. Li Ziji was killed, and in such a domineering way. Jiang Xiu said, I'm already prepared, but it seems like your Li family isn't ready yet. I hope you won't disappoint me. Only then did the people present slowly come back to their senses. They couldn't help but step back. Long Yingqing's face didn't have a single trace of blood. She trembled as she said, You. Just who are you? Jiang Xiu said, Who do you think I am? Long Yingqing swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty as she looked at Jiang Xiu in fear. Jiang Xiu treated her very badly. It could be said that he always went against her. He was simply a great disaster, but it was incomparably real. Although meeting him wasn't a good thing, and she was even splashed with that, a young girl's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. Unknowingly, Jiang Xiu had already walked into her heart. But now everything had become so strange. She opened her mouth with difficulty and said, You are Jiang Luoxia? This name seemed to have magic. When he said it out loud, everyone present held their breaths. He wasn't even 20 years old, but he was Wang Xintong's boss. His surname was Jiang, and he had such extraordinary power. His identity was already obvious, but guessing and him admitting it were two different things. Jiang Xiu said, That's right, I'm Jiang Luoxia. Boom. The person in front of them was really the #1 demigod in China. Lin Yao, a martial artist, immediately shuddered. He quickly walked out and knelt on one knee, respectfully saying, Junior Lin Yao greets Mr. Jiang. Greetings, Mr. Jiang. In front of the #1 demigod in China, all the martial artists felt a chill run down their spines. Facing such a peerless powerhouse, they had no way of fighting back. If they were Li Ziji, the result would be the same. They wouldn't be able to withstand a single move from him. We greet Mr. Jiang. Unknowingly, Lin Yao had already knelt on the ground with his head lowered. He didn't dare to get up for a long time, and his body was trembling all over. The more a martial artist was, the more they understood how terrifying Jiang Xiu was, and the more they were in awe of him. Greetings. Greetings, Mr. Jiang. Everyone in the Long family remembered how they had offended Jiang Xiu. They were so scared that they knelt on the ground and didn't dare to move. They were very upset, especially Long Xiaoru and Long Xiui, who had humiliated Jiang Xiu at the auction house. Thinking of this, they were sweating profusely. Xiao Xueqing and Bai Xian were completely dumbfounded. They felt as if they had traveled to another world. It was as if they were watching a myth. However, it also made them realize that there was a huge gap between these people and Jiang Xiu. It was not the gap between an ordinary person and a rich person, nor was it the gap between a rich person and a noble. It was the gap between a mortal and a god. They were mortals, and Jiang Xiu was a god high above. God ruled everything. Xiao Xueqing and Bai Xian looked at Jiang Xiu in a daze, especially Xiao Xueqing. She didn't know why, but she felt a little disappointed. Her friend was so powerful. Logically speaking, she should be happy. However, she felt that Jiang Xiu was high above and out of her reach. For a moment, she felt empty and had mixed feelings. Jiang Xiu said, Ms. RV, I'll say it again. If you want Bai Xian to be RV's spokesperson in Hua Nation, it's only possible if you break the contract. Ms. RV was also very shocked. She had seen the world, and after the extreme shock she said, So sir, you're the new demigod Jiang Luoxia. Mr. Jiang, your reputation is like thunder in my ears. However, I'm afraid that the matter of RV's spokesperson is not that simple. Ms. RV said, You killed the heir of the Li family of North Korea. The Li family won't let this matter rest. Also, the Long family of Hua Nation is the fiancé of this beautiful lady beside me. You'll face the revenge of the two families. Jiang Xiu glanced at Long Yingqing. There was no trace of sadness on her face. There was only shock when she looked at Jiang Xiu. It seemed that she didn't have any feelings for her so-called fiancé. However, it was understandable. Political marriages were based on interests. Everyone wanted to seek benefits for their own family. Who would be moved by true feelings? In such a game, whoever was moved by true feelings would definitely lose. Jiang Xiu even saw a trace of joy in Long Yingqing's eyes. It was a joy of relief. It felt as if her whole body was relaxed and free. Ms. RV stared at Jiang Xiu and shook her head gently. Honorable Mr. Jiang, you're too reckless. You may not know what you've done wrong. When you know, it'll be too late for regrets. Elysium wanted to accept Jiang Xiu, but there were many people who opposed it. Now that the Long family and the Li family had joined, the possibility of accepting Jiang Xiu was close to zero. Honorable sir, are you really ready? Welcome the anger of the Li family and the Long family. Chapter 245. Anger. Jiang Xiu's gaze swept past Miss RV. There was no satisfaction in his eyes, only the raging flames of war. His aura gradually rose. The Li family of North Korea, the Long family, the Elysium. His gaze suddenly shot towards Long Yingqing and landed on her snow-white face. Suddenly, Jiang Xiu made his move. Boom, his eyes turned pitch black, and his hair grew crazily, like flames raging in the sky. Where is the anger of Jiang Luoxia directed at? The #1 demigod of China had made his move. Suddenly, black clouds rolled in the sky, and the moon dimmed. Electric currents sizzled in the distance, and a violent wind blew. It was as if a god had descended to the mortal world, causing people to tremble. Oh my god! Only then did the people present truly feel how powerful Jiang Xiu was. He didn't just kill people with a single blow. His power shook heaven and earth, causing a shocking change in heaven and earth. The dark clouds continued to press down. Long Yingqing's delicate body trembled, and her pretty face was as pale as paper. She could no longer stand. Her legs went soft, and she collapsed to the ground. She felt incomparable pain. This pain came from the depths of her soul. In an instant, her forehead and face were covered in bean-sized beads of sweat. Then her entire body began to curl up. Ah! In a castle in Galuya, an incomparably mournful and angry howl suddenly sounded. This howl didn't come through body waves, but directly appeared in the minds of the people in that world. What's wrong? In the Elysium meeting, a man shrouded in a black robe trembled in pain. With a bang, his body trembled. What's wrong? Speak. Everyone present was a demigod. Jiang Luoxia had come to Europe. No, to be precise, he had been tricked by the people of Elysium to come to Europe. They wanted to decide this matter. To kill or to submit. They were still in the midst of an intense debate when an accident suddenly occurred. Say something. The man under the black robe pressed his hand tightly on the solid wood table. His hand was transparent, but black gas kept escaping from this transparent hand. It looked very evil. Long Zizong, someone did something to your great-granddaughter. His voice was painful and hoarse. What's going on? Many people present knew what had happened. Back then, the little girl called Long Yingqing was about to die. Long Zai found a monk and used a secret technique to save her life. From then on, the little girl sacrificed herself to the monk. Therefore, the Long family owed the monk a favor. But someone had done something to the little girl's body. Why would the monk be in such pain? How could a great monk be stumped by such a small problem? The one who spoke was an old Chinese man. His face was full of wrinkles, like a work of art. At this moment, there was a relaxed smile on his face, and he didn't take it seriously at all. Not only him, but everyone present also disagreed. They boasted that they possessed strength far beyond this world. They believed that they stood at the peak of this world, and that no one could shake them, let alone threaten them. Hurry up and settle it. We still have important matters to attend to. But the monk under the black robe was trembling violently. Black chi was constantly emitting from his body. His eyes were piercing red, and his face was thinning at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was obvious that his strength was disappearing very quickly. He roared in pain, "It's Jiang Luoxia." What? Once this was said, everyone present was shocked. What's going on? The black-robed monk said. He wants to forcefully pull out the dead soul that I planted in Miss Long's body. That is a clone that I spent a lot of effort to refine. It is the source of my life. Jiang Luoxia. He wants to pull it out alive. The dead soul has no place to stay. It will collapse. Ah! The black-robed monk screamed in pain. This feeling was as if a person's soul was being forcefully pulled out of his body. One had to know that the soul and the body were fused together. The relationship was like skin and flesh. This was a forceful and bloody separation of skin and flesh. You can't win against him? Long Zizong was shocked. The demigods present also widened their eyes, waiting for an answer. They didn't believe it. The monk cultivated the Tao of soul sacrifice. His cultivation was all here. Even if Jiang Luoxia's combat strength was stronger than his, there was no reason for him to win against a monk in terms of cultivation. What kind of joke was this? It was imaginable that a city dweller who wasn't even 20 years old could win against an old monk who had studied Buddhist scriptures all his life. Ah! The black-robed monk screamed in pain. Right now it wasn't just his face. It felt as if his entire body was withering. Save me. Hearing the black-robed monk's cry for help, the relaxed expressions on the demigods' faces disappeared. In an instant, they became serious. They realized that the situation wasn't right. The black-robed monk actually couldn't win against Jiang Xiao. Based on the current situation, if the black-robed monk didn't make any changes, he might die on the spot. Thinking of this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Jiang Luoxia actually had such high attainments in the mysterious and unfathomable soul sacrifice. It's great now. We were still discussing whether to accept him, but he gave us a show of strength first. One of the men slammed the table angrily. This person must be killed. The black-robed monk was still screaming in pain. The Tao that he cultivated was extremely unorthodox. Very few people would cultivate it. Therefore, although there were many demigods present, none of them could help. Save me. A voice sounded. Sacrifice the rook to save the king. The man in the 9-python robe slowly turned around and said, "It's not easy for you to refine a clone, but compared to your own life, it's much more important. There's a saying in China, where there's life, there's hope." If the black-robed monk cut off his connection with his clone, Jiang Luoxia wouldn't have a medium to attack him. At the very least, he would be able to save his own life. It'll be too late if we delay any longer. The black-robed monk clenched his teeth and formed a strange hand seal. He chanted an incantation that was difficult to understand. His entire body trembled, and the thick black qi on the surface of his body dissipated and disappeared without a trace. He exhaled softly as if all his strength had been sucked out. He didn't even have the strength to move. He seemed to have aged a lot. His face was thin, and his skin was like the skin of an orange. "How do you feel?" The black-robed monk said, "My life is saved, but I've lost 70 to 80% of my cultivation." But then, his expression became very strange. He said, "Jiang Luoxia asked me to pass on a message. Those who offend Jiang Luoxia won't have a life for a life, but their entire family will be annihilated." Whoosh! A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Jiang Luoxia is so arrogant. How dare he look down on Elysium in public? A cold voice sounded. "A mere newly ascended demigod dares to spout nonsense here. I think Elysium has been too kind these years. They've already forgotten how powerful we are." What a joke. Just now someone actually suggested taking in Jiang Luoxia. What else do you have to say now? The demigods were filled with righteous indignation. Elysium, they were the high and mighty Elysium. It was their greatest humiliation to be bullied and humiliated like this. If we don't kill Jiang Luoxia, how can Elysium have any face left? The man in the 9-python robe also frowned. He asked, "What else did he say?" The black-robed monk said, "He also said that he would give everyone a greeting gift. He told me to tear open my chest." As he spoke, he felt a burning sensation on his chest. Moreover, it was so hot that he couldn't stand it. He suddenly tore open his clothes, and the light of a profound character shone out from his body. "What is this?" Before he had even finished speaking, the black-robed monk's face began to contort in extreme pain. The light of the character grew even brighter, and he screamed again. When it reached its peak, boom! The black-robed monk's entire body exploded. The entire hall was filled with charred corpse ashes that drifted in the air. A deathly silence. The demigods present were all dumbfounded. They all stared with wide eyes. Even the man in the 9-python robe's expression changed greatly. A trace of fear appeared in his eyes, and he tightly grasped the longevity stone talisman in his hand. What kind of technique was this? He had actually killed a demigod from hundreds of miles away. What kind of technique was this? How terrifying was this? Was Elysium going to fight with such a peerless powerhouse? Descending 9 mysteries to cleanse the heavens, 1,000 years of work. Even without a square inch, he was still outstanding. Chapter 246. Deterrence. What is deterrence? This is deterrence. Jiang Xiu had already been implanted into the body of the black-robed monk through the divine clone medium long before the black-robed monk abandoned the chariot to protect the general. In terms of magical spells, Jiang Xiu left them behind by 3,000 years. Dead. Jiang Luoxia added another murder case in Elysium. First it was unknown, and now it was the black-robed monk. Jiang Luoxia. The eyes of the 9-python's robe narrowed, and he said coldly, "It's you who don't know what's good for you. Don't blame me for being ruthless. The proposal to accept Jiang Luoxia into Elysium is cancelled. Immediately issue the Elysium demigod hunting order." Long Zizong said, "This Jiang Luoxia, his means are so unpredictable. We have to take the long view and make sure to hit him in one blow. Otherwise, if we let him escape, we will be in big trouble." A man on the side said, "Long Zizong, I think you are scared out of your wits. Who are we, the dignified Elysium, afraid of? The 9 Pythons robe said. It's not a bad thing to be cautious. Jiang Luoxia's origin is mysterious, and the 3rd place on the demigod list is not a joke. Let's discuss it carefully. At this time, above the banquet sky, the dark clouds finally dispersed, and the moonlight scattered. Long Yingqing, who was curled up on the ground, felt that she was seriously ill. She was wet all over, and was helped up by someone. What did you do to me? Jiang Xiu said. Nothing, I just killed the demigod who planted the remnant soul in your body. Miss RV's face changed greatly. Gandalf is dead? Impossible, Jiang Xiu said. Miss RV, you don't believe me? Miss RV knew that Jiang Xiu was a demigod with extraordinary strength and unpredictable abilities, but how could he kill someone hundreds of miles away? Please forgive our old lady for only having such a shallow knowledge. She had a close relationship with the Long family and the Li family, because of the black-robed monk. That monk was the one her great-grandfather had brought her to receive the ceremony. He was a wise man. Someone came from behind and whispered a few words in her ear. Ms. RV's face suddenly changed, and she stared at Jiang Xiu. You know, respected demigod, you really killed Gandalf. Jiang Xiu said. I have nowhere to vent my anger. Ms. RV's face was ashen. Everyone in the Long family was shocked. They looked at each other in dismay. This was simply like listening to a storyteller. Killing a demigod was simply unheard of. Ms. RV squeezed out a smile and said, Dear sir, I think so. Ms. Xiao Xueqing, the spokesperson for RV in China, is more suitable. Jiang Xiu glanced at him coldly. You have no say in this matter from the beginning to the end. Ms. RV shut her mouth in embarrassment. Jiang Xiu said, You seem to be very familiar with the people of Elysium? Ms. RV said, My father's Zheng family is from Elysium, but he died early. I only know the surface of Elysium. In comparison, the Li family and the Long family are both branches of Elysium. That Ms. Long has also been to the headquarters of Elysium. Jiang Xiu said, You've been there? Long Yingqing's face was pale. Yes, Jiang Xiu said. Then you must remember the way. Jiang Xiu thought that he would have to spend some effort to find the headquarters of Elysium. He didn't expect that it would be so easy. Long Yingqing nodded. That's the Holy Land. Lead the way. The news of Jiang Luoxia's arrival in Europe swept through the Chinese martial arts world like a storm. The news of Jiang Luoxia killing Li Ziji of North Korea also blew up on North Korea's martial arts forum. Many people from North Korea cursed. Damn it, wait for the revenge of the Li family's demigod. On the other hand, the special department of Hua Nation in Europe was extremely nervous. That night, they received feedback from the country to pay close attention to Jiang Luoxia's movements and provide strong support. It seems that our worries are unnecessary, the man reading the newspaper said. Yes, sir, the woman said with a sour and relieved expression. Mr. Jiang killed the crown prince of the Li family and completely fell out with the Li family and the Long family. It's almost impossible for him to join Elysium. Then, the man reading the newspaper had a solemn expression. Then it can only be an enemy. His good mood just now was gone. It was Elysium, an existence that even superpowers like America and Hua Nation were afraid of. Not good, Dark Dragon. We received news that Mr. Jiang has set off to the west of Galuya. The man reading the newspaper and the blonde woman were stunned. And then their expressions changed drastically. Not good. The Holy Land. The man called Dark Dragon who was reading the newspaper said with a solemn expression. It seems that Mr. Jiang is going to the Holy Land. That's Elysium's base. Crazy, crazy. He's not going to kill his way into Elysium's base, is he? The fat European man's blue eyes widened, and his lips trembled. Dark Dragon said, looking at Jiang Luoxia's style of doing things, it's really possible. Oh my god, that's Elysium's base. Since the beginning of World War I, planes and cannons have to take a detour there. He's going there alone? The blonde woman hugged her head. Dark Dragon's expression was very serious. He said, I have to contact the country about this. For a demigod who favored Hua Nation, that was too precious. Yes, there were many demigods in Hua Nation. They either lived in seclusion or stayed out of harm's way. However, a demigod like Jiang Xiu was really one of a kind. To Hua Nation, he was the most powerful national defense force, a sharp weapon in their hands. If he died, it would be a pity. Moreover, Jiang Xiu was still so young, only 20 years old. If he grew for another 100 years, he would be able to protect Hua Nation's prosperity for another 100 years. There was news from the country that they would use all their power to ensure Mr. Jiang's safety. Little did they know that Jiang Luoxia had entered Diaoyutai and met with the big boss. He had talked with him as a demigod, so of course, the country would spare no effort. Dark Dragon, what do you plan to do? Dark Dragon began to pack his luggage and said, Go to the west. You guys don't go. It's too dangerous. No. You're our leader. How can we leave you alone? Dark Dragon said with a smile. This trip is dangerous and unpredictable. I can advance and retreat more freely alone. If you guys go with me, it will make me worry. You guys stay and be ready to help at any time. The door was pushed open and a handsome young man came in. It was the young man who took the photo. I just received news that after Mr. Jiang killed Li Zaiji, a large number of martial cultivators from North Korea entered Galuya. They should be from Mr. Jiang. Yes, boss, you're going out? Dark Dragon said. I'm going to the west. His expression was very serious. The situation was not optimistic. Li Zaiji was the heir of the Li family. If he was killed, the Li family would definitely not let it go. In fact, it was not just North Korea. Many martial cultivators from Hua Nation also entered Galuya. They smelled the smell of gunpowder, and even many people from Japan rushed over. In an instant, Galuya became a place of turmoil. At the time of the Fengyin gathering, Jiang Xiu was currently sitting in the car, and the one driving was Long Yingqing. Her situation today was much better, and she was no longer sweating like before. Moreover, although her body was weak, she felt relaxed. In the past, she always had a feeling of being suppressed. Long Yingqing said, You're saying that the other party is using my life to extend his? Jiang Xiu said, To put it simply, that is indeed the case. This is also his goal. You often have heart palpitations and dizziness. First, there is a problem with your soul and body. Second, your life is draining too quickly. Long Yingqing said, But I'm not aging quickly. Jiang Xiu said, This has nothing to do with old age. Aging is only a matter of time. The strength of your life force is two different concepts. There was one thing that Jiang Xiu did not mention. If Jiang Xiu had not taken out the remnant soul, Long Yingqing would have died from starvation once her life force was drained. This kind of situation would increase with age. A child's life force was the most vigorous. After this age, it would slow down. At 28 years old, a person's life force would completely degenerate. At that time, Long Yingqing would definitely die. In other words, even if she was lucky and did not die from starvation, she would not live past 28 years old. There was no free lunch in this world. The black-robed monk had saved her life, so he naturally had to pay a price. Your constitution is a bit special. When he helped Long Yingqing cleanse her soul, he discovered that there was a mutation in her soul. If this was in the immortal martial continent, all the large sects would fight over it. Regardless of her cultivation talent, just this point alone meant that Long Yingqing's achievements would not be low. Chapter 247. However, there was no way for him to cultivate here. Even he was incapable of doing so, let alone an ordinary mortal. If he had not coincidentally obtained the longevity stone talisman, he would not have been able to become a celestial so quickly. Given his previous rate of cultivation, it would have taken him 40 to 50 years. Long Yingqing turned her head and looked at Jiang Xiu's marble-like face. She softly spat out, Thank you. Jiang Xiu felt that it was a little strange. Thank me for what? Long Yingqing said, I've seen it in the ancient Greek books. Regarding the so-called holy maiden, they all don't live long. The longest one is only 20 years old, so, thank you. Jiang Xiu said, Saving you was just a matter of convenience. However, Long Yingqing knew that if Jiang Xiu was only dealing with the black-robed monk, there was no need for him to take out the remnant soul. He could have left it in her body. Perhaps it was just a matter of convenience, but it was better than not doing it. She said, in short, thank you. Jiang Xiu slightly raised a charming smile and said, I just want to intimidate Heaven Gate and let them know that I, Jiang Luoxia, am not someone to be trifled with. However, you said thank you too early. Soon, you will hate me to the bones. Long Yingqing's expression changed. Are you really going to the sacred lands? Jiang Xiu said, of course. The car was already on the road. Jiang Xiu felt that there was something wrong with this girl's brain, asking such a boring and childish question. Jiang Luoxia was a man of his word. Long Yingqing bit her red lips and said, it's best if you don't go. I'm not worried about you. I just feel that you helped me, so I'm reminding you that the sacred lands is not as simple as you think. If you go there, you will definitely die. Jiang Xiu said, will I definitely die? Long Yingqing nodded her head. I've heard about your matter. The method you used to kill Li Zaiji is very powerful, and the method you used to kill the black-robed monk is even more unimaginable. However, all of these combined are definitely not a match for Heaven Gate. Even if you want to go against Elysium, you have to understand your opponent. As the saying goes, know thyself and know thy enemy, and you will never be defeated. Jiang Xiu laughed coldly. Long Yingqing, don't try to use your ability to judge me. No matter how many schemes you have, in front of absolute power, you will only pale like paper. I will cut you down with my blade. Long Yingqing said somewhat angrily. Do you want to hear it or not? She had never tried to persuade someone with such sincerity, not even with Li Zaiji. In fact, Li Zaiji was a stranger to her. It was not that they had only spent a short time together. She had been in North Korea for 3 years. Logically speaking, she should be familiar with him. However, the conflict in her heart made her refuse to get to know this man. Because she knew that it was just a marriage of interest. Seeing the sadness in Long Yingqing's eyes, Jiang Xiu seemed to see his own experience in the Jiang family. He had also fallen victim to a political marriage. Those people only cared about their own interests, and had never thought about her life. Suddenly, Jiang Xiu felt a terrifying aura envelop him. At this moment, the car was speeding along at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour. He was very curious as to what kind of expert the other party was to be able to lock onto him at such a speed. He looked back into the distance and his eyes suddenly widened. He almost cursed out. Fuck. A wave of anger surged from his heart as he coldly said, ignorant, stupid. On top of an abandoned building in the distance, a man was actually holding a rocket launcher on his shoulder, aiming at him with a scope. In order to kill Jiang Luoxia, they were willing to do anything. It was the flat face of a North Korean. A sinister smile appeared on his face. Die! Boom. A powerful rocket launcher rushed out from the barrel under the powerful force. It spat out flames and shot towards the Land Rover that Jiang Xiu and the others were driving at an astonishing speed. Long Yingqing also heard the chi-chi sound. Turning her head to look, she was almost scared out of her wits. Seeing a rocket launcher flying towards her, she felt complete despair. This thing's power was enough to blow their mounts to pieces. Ah! She cried out in horror. Jiang Xiu firmly believed that the North Korean should be able to see Long Yingqing's face from the standard scope. Even if he couldn't see it clearly, he should know that Long Yingqing had been taken to the Holy Land by him. Using a rocket launcher in this kind of situation, not only did he want his life, but he also didn't care about Long Yingqing's life. Even if you don't consider that she was once your young mistress, she was still the young miss of the Long family. A cruel expression appeared on the sniper's face. Under normal circumstances, there would be a loud explosion, and the car would be blown up. But in the next second his face froze on the spot and he cried out. How is this possible? The rocket launcher that hit the car stopped in midair. Flames continued to spurt out from its butt, but it couldn't move an inch. It didn't detonate? The rocket launcher seemed to have a mind of its own. It turned around in the air and aimed at the sniper's current position. Suddenly his eyes widened and he shouted, "Damn it!" Then the rocket launcher rushed over as if it had been fired again. It was too fast. He immediately threw himself into the distance and made a prone posture. He was a top-notch martial artist in North Korea and a top-notch soldier king. He knew that at this moment, only by lying down would he have a chance of survival. Also, he couldn't directly touch the ground with his chest. That would be a mistake. The powerful vibration of the explosion would directly injure his internal organs. Many new recruits thought that lying down on the battlefield would be enough, but after the explosion, they would be flipped over and die with ashen faces and mouthfuls of blood. When lying down, they would definitely use their arms to support themselves. He had done this kind of prone posture no less than 10,000 times during his military service. Lying down on the spot, pouncing on the ground. But no matter how standard his movements were, it was all in vain. The power of modern thermal weapons was many times stronger than during World War II. Moreover, in order to deal with Jiang Luoxia, he had brought his most powerful weapon. It was powerful enough to destroy this abandoned building. Boom! The rocket launcher exploded with terrifying heat and pressure. The power of the explosion instantly destroyed the entire building. In his despair, he saw his flesh and blood being destroyed bit by bit. Fortunately, the process was very short. However, he didn't understand until he died that the missile had turned on its own. How could a demigod have such terrifying power? The most wronged were the other experts sent by the Li family in this building. They didn't even have time to show their skills before they were inexplicably killed by their own rocket launchers. There were as many as 13 people, the core of the Li family's combat strength. The collapse of the ruined building caused dust to fill the air. The huge movement caused the cups of water placed on the tables 10 miles away to ripple slightly due to the vibration. The car was almost sent flying by the heat wave. Jiang Xiu suddenly pressed down on it. The tires rubbed against the ground violently and slid 2 to 3 meters away. With a bang, the car window couldn't withstand the force and shattered. Jiang Xiu asked, "Are you okay?" Long Yingqing was still in a state of shock. Her beautiful eyes looked at Jiang Xiu in disbelief. Was he so powerful that the rocket launcher was like a child's toy in front of him? However, she rejoiced in her heart. If he hadn't been so powerful, she would have been blown to death. That damned Li family bastard actually didn't care about her life. In the smoke, the Land Rover rushed out. In the distance, a man slowly lowered his binoculars in horror. It was the Dark Dragon. He didn't expect the Li family to use weapons of this level. What was even more unexpected was that such firearms were like child's play in front of Jiang Luoxia. According to his intelligence, more than a dozen elites of the Li family had come to ambush Jiang Luoxia. Moreover, they were lurking on this road. Therefore, he had planned to provide support here. However, he now knew that everything was unnecessary. If he guessed correctly, more than a dozen elites of the Li family should be in that building. Moreover, they should all be buried with the building at this moment. It wasn't that they were too stupid to be wiped out. Instead, who would have thought that Jiang Luoxia was so powerful that he wasn't even afraid of rocket launchers? Mr. Jiang, are you really going to kill your way to the Holy Land? The mission he received from his superiors was to stop Jiang Luoxia from going to the Holy Land no matter what. He didn't know how to complete such a mission. Seeing the car drive away, he hurriedly appeared from the attic and drove after it. Mr. Jiang, don't do anything stupid. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.